And we're live, everybody. It's fantasy draft season, so we wanted to share some of the buzz. Unfortunately, our fearless commissioner, who just was on the couch this week, Jason Wood's not with us tonight, sending out some positive vibes to him. As of right now, and as the night goes on, we may be joined by other people. The limit is 6, so I don't know how we're going to vote someone off the island. But, the football guys royalty here. Dr. Jene Bramel, last year's champion. This is a moment for me to say I was the champion in 2018, 2017. I think in 2018 I beat you, Matt Waldman. But since you're the returning champ, Gene, what's the strategy tonight?
Try to continue my blind squirrel finds nuts.
That's
philosophy as much as possible.
Yeah,
no, the philosophy is always the same. You guys are too good, so I could care less about ADP. I'm trying to find whatever upside I can find whenever I can find it, and then hope more of them hit than not. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Okay. Before I ask some more questions, let me lay this down for everybody out there that is joining us. And this league is, not your typical league in the sense that we have a super flex. We have 3 wide receivers plus another flex. We have some high-end tight end scoring. We have performance bonuses for big games and long touchdowns. So this league really rewards excellence. Bob Henry, you're number 2.
I'm glad you just told us the rules because I didn't know them.
Yeah, I had to do that for Cecil today. Cecil's got the number 1 pick, and I had to today when we were doing our show. I was letting him know. By the way, you have the number 1 pick, and he's like, "That's exciting." And I said, "And it's a super flex league, so he's picking first overall. It'll be interesting to see what he does." But Bob, you've got the 2nd pick, right?
I do.
And I don't think it's table talk to say, you maybe Cecil won't take McCaffrey, but assuming he does, are you thinking quarterback? Are you thinking, nah, super flex, still I'll let quarterback ride. I got my eyes on someone else.
I'm thinking quarterback, probably, knowing how we've drafted in the last couple of years.
Like maniacs.
I've had a high draft pick and didn't take a quarterback, and when it came back around for me, I was scrambling to get a quarterback. But I've gone back and forth. I've done a few mocks, and laughingly, using our draft dominator online, I realized I had all the wrong settings still in there from the fishbowl.
Very different settings.
I changed all the autos, all the auto configure stuff to my own.
And it's good. It's a great, by the way, it's a great endorsement of the Dominator that you can use it for something like the fishbowl. But real quickly, just to go over those non-standard rules, okay? Passing touchdowns are 5, 30 to 59-yard touchdowns are a 2-point bonus, 60-yard touchdowns are a 4-point bonus. Passing yards are 1 point for every 20 yards, 3-point bonus for 300-yard games, 5-point bonus for 400-yard games. Rushing touchdowns get bonuses for a 2-point bonus for 20 to 49, a 4-point bonus for 50-yard touchdowns. Similarly, the performance bonus is 3 points for a 100-yard game. And we also have for tight ends, they get 1.5 PPR. And even defenses you can get a 15-point bonus for a shutout, a 15-point bonus if you hold a team under 200 total yards, 3 points for turnovers, half a point for every sack even. So I'll probably, say I'm always the first person to take a defense in every draft I've ever done. I think my very first FESL league, when I was a recapper, I took a defense in the 5th or 6th round because it had similar scoring, and everybody laughed. So I don't know. Can we go ahead and the next person I want to ask here, probably because you're the only one down on, no one's in the second half of the draft with me, Matt. So you're sitting at number 6, and are you hoping Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes are gone before you, or do you not really care if they're gone before you?
I'm just enjoying the fact that there's like 4 pale people here and 1 person who's been out at the lake. With this, like, you can just tell who's been chilling out at the lake right now. So I'm a little jealous about that. But no, I mean, it's Daniel Jones and Jordan Love all the way for me in the first, either one of those guys is probably what I'm looking at. Then I'm going to follow up with a punter. Wait a minute, we don't have punters in this league. But yeah, I mean, certainly quarterbacks have a great deal of value. Certainly the tight end having the value that it does. But the fact that you can start so many running backs and wide receivers, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like an insult, but these types of formats are very much kind of like, lots of wild cards in a 5-draw poker game in terms of like the way that you can build a winner. So it's what's interesting about this is that really everything goes out the window with this particular type of with this league, with these guys, because everybody has their own kind of strategy. And if you're going by the draft dominator or going by your own list, you tend to get screwed in one fashion or the other. Everyone seems to snipe one another. So it's a lot of fun in that respect, but I'm pretty much thrown out the window any plan that I would have in a normal league.
Absolutely. And I think it was one year, was it you and Dr. Gene that had the arms race and pushed Ray Rice into the second round when he was going like the 6th round in every other draft? Yeah. And what was funny is I think I went to the championship in that league, but I think it was either Gene or Aaron who beat me in that one too. So I've been a bridesmaid a lot in this particular league, but never the bride. Yeah, maybe this year again if Gene's blind squirrels can find a nut. Devin, do we have you? Can I ask you about the number 4 pick?
Yeah, you can ask me.
So similar question, super flex. Some people feel like I want to get my quarterbacks early. I don't want to have to worry about it. Others are willing to take the tank to E and aren't afraid of passing on quarterback early. At number 4, you might have to decide between, like Saquon Barkley and Lamar Jackson or something like that. What's your early inclination?
The lone DFS guy in the league. I'm going to take I'm going to try and get 3 mid-level quarterbacks and just play the matchups.
Well, actually, I like the late round quarterback value. So I'm sitting at number 8, and I don't know how much I'm willing to test it. It depends on what happens. Anyone here want to talk about super flex? Well, actually, before we do that, because we're going to be getting going in a couple minutes, I'm seeing, is it Leonard Fournette to Tampa Bay? Is that going to happen?
Yep, it's official.
It's official. So, boo to Ronald Jones. Matt Waldman, instant reaction.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good fit for him in terms of scheme because they like to run gap plays, and that's really what he does well. And then they also get a guy who is a good pass catcher in terms of his hands, and so you have a guy who can catch dump offs, and it gives you that power element. It's fascinating in terms of how that will impact Ronald Jones. It kind of ranges from the standpoint, I'm sure, the view that it impacts Jones greatly to the idea that it may not impact him as much as you would expect,
right?
Because of the level of play that he's had. But I think that, we'll see in this draft that his value is probably going to drop a couple of rounds at the very least. So it's schematically, it's a very good fit for what Leonard Fournette does. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's bad. He's a bad player, but that's kind of like saying that, Hank Williams was a bad musician because he didn't play, grunge metal or death metal, but but when you put him in the right environment, he's one of the all-time greats. And I think that when you put Leonard Fournette in the right environment, he can be an asset to a team and he can be a fantasy asset.
So a winning team is all he needs.
Yeah, and it is winning team. knee jerk reaction. Let's go around the room. And I know this is kind of like table talk. Knee jerk reaction going around the room. Who do you take first, Fournette or Ronald Jones? Bob.
God.
That's a good answer. That's actually a really good answer.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. Strikes me as like you're probably not the one that's going to be taking either of them in this draft.
There's a point where it's a valuable play, but right now, I'm not even sure. I can't even think about how that's going to break down in terms of touches and everything. So it's
exactly. Well, then you have to.
I have way too many Rojo chairs.
well, and they still wanted to give Jones that chance. Matt, Ronald Jones or Fournette? If you could,
Jones.
Jones.
I'll take him.
Devin.
Fournette.
Gene.
Whichever one's later, and I don't care anymore.
And that might be the most appropriate answer, to be honest. But I think the split shows you, and I'm texting with our fearless leader Joe Bryant right now about this, and I said I just think the bottom line advice here is, and by the way, Bob's on the clock as Cecil leads with Patrick Mahomes. So there you go. You have a chance to take Christian McCaffrey if you want, Bob. And I think the answer is, the Tampa backfield just doesn't look very attractive here because Ronald Jones isn't totally going away, and neither is Fournette, and neither is Dario Mugawale. The interesting question here is, does Keyshawn Vaughn is he the rare third rounder sent to the practice squad with roster spots? But
I mean, he's an old rookie too. He's what, 24?
yes,
He's older than Ronald Jones.
Yes, and hasn't done anything to endear himself. And to FESL OG live stream, we add Andrew Garda, who is a Jets fan, and for that we extend our condolences.
I appreciate that.
We're going to have Devin, Andrew, and Waldman back to back. Bob Henry goes Christian McCaffrey. What's the thought process here, Bob?
I was actually planning to take Mahomes there, but I can't turn down McCaffrey at that point. It's too much value.
Is there anybody here who doesn't think McCaffrey's going to do roughly what he did last year?
Assuming they play all their games, yeah.
Yeah, that's always that's good, and I think that's the case here, and it's the wonderful advantage you get as the number one pick. Clayton Gray, Footballguys MVP, goes Saquon Barkley, and now we go to Devin, and Devin, you're going to have a choice here, and we'll let Devin make the choice, and we'll hear again super flex strategy here. Andrew, who are you hoping that Devin takes here?
Well, I'm really looking for an early kicker, but
Sam Ficken.
Yeah, why not? The challenging thing for the football guys drafts to me are always trying to figure out what everybody's going to do, and not just this first round. I think the last couple of years I've watched people snipe guys that I've wanted repeatedly over and over again. So I don't know. I've been trying to think really hard about. I mean, not really hard because it's just fantasy football.
Yeah, we're having fun.
But I've been trying to think. Do I want to change my approach this year? Because I tend to. I'm old school. I'm an old man now. And I tend to like to go, running back heavy early, but that doesn't always really fly real well in this group. Not just because of the super flex, but also, and the way that the scoring is, but also everybody's way too smart. So,
yeah, you aren't going to. Well, there's reaching around for a player, and then there's again. Sometimes how we have a race to see who can be the first one to take a player that we know are very exciting. I know there was a year that I thought I was going to get Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago, and Matt, I think you might have even had two quarterbacks or something. It was ludicrous that you took Patrick Mahomes, but you took him the round before I was going to, and that's a wonderful illustration. I mean, Matt, you're going to be next up after Devin and Andrew pick.
There we go.
But we do have the pick. Yes, and they're zigging and they're zagging and there's Travis Kelce, but I can't argue with it with the scoring. Devin, what's the thought process?
It makes my tight end decision very easy every week. I said it in the beginning. It's too early for me to draft a quarterback, and Elliott, I have concerns this year with just how many touches he's going to get with all the options they have in that offense. So for me, it was between Lamar Jackson and Travis Kelce, and the biggest difference maker for me was Kelce.
Yeah, almost 100 catches last year. You get a piece of Patrick Mahomes. Andrew's on the clock. Speaking of Elliott, and we can try Bob. Whoops, did we just lose? No? I'm sorry. Bob, speaking of Elliott, because you do the projections, and for a long time running, you've been one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate projectors. Ezekiel Elliott, talked about this with Paul Charchian on the couch today. Maybe is Ezekiel Elliott more of a 65-70% of the backfield guy with how much Tony Pollard has shown that he can do. With Zeke saying, hey, if they ask me to share, I'll share. With Mike McCarthy being a little evasive, basically saying it's, we can deploy these guys how we decide we're going to this year. Any worry about Zeke not dominating that backfield the way he has in the past?
Not really. not really at all. I think he and Saquon are on their own tier. It's 1A, 1B, or 1B, 1A. Although I do, I've had this feeling lately. I haven't done this in my projections, obviously, because it's way out of whack with the range of outcomes. But of the two, I wouldn't be surprised if Barkley went bonkers and caught like 70, 80, 90 balls, even though there's so many mouths to feed over there. I just think that offense could really flow through him even more so than Zeke. Zeke's going to crush it no matter what. But I just think that Dallas offense is going to fly so high this year that everybody's going to be blowing it out, and Zeke's just going to get so much love at the goal line, and he'll make up a lot of it. But both those guys are, for me, clearly 2 and 3, and then there's a drop off after that.
Yeah, and I think that the 20 touchdowns could be in the cards. Andrew goes Alvin Kamara at number 5. Gene, tell Andrew and everyone else why there should not be too much worry about hearing about an epidural, I'm using air quotes, that Alvin Kamara got, Gene.
Well, those are two very specific reports. One saying they got an epidural steroid injection, which would suggest that he's got a herniated disc that was symptomatic, either pain or some weakness or any number of things going down, presumably with the spine there. And then the sacroiliac joint is far away from the spine. It's the joint between the very bottom of the spine toward the outside and then your pelvis. And that's not a big issue at all. Those things stiffen up from time to time. They're sore, but a steroid injection into a joint like that is nowhere near as short or long-term concerning as something in the back itself. So, there's a little bit of a competing situation. Rappaport's report, and, we've had some issues with Ian Rappaport being accurate on Sundays in the past, but both of those reports being as specific as they are, there's not been anybody that's come out in the last few hours and argued that Rappaport's report was not accurate. So assuming that's accurate and seeing what we saw when Kamara came back to practice today, really shouldn't seem to be that much concern for him, but we'll watch and see how that goes. Hopefully there really isn't anything going on his back and it's a situation where it's already behind him. All right,
we're waiting on Aaron Rudnicki, another OFBG, who may or may not be in the draft room right now. The real fantasy draft night with everybody live. But Waldman, you get Zeke. How happy are you to see Elliott? How surprised are you to see Elliott there at number 6?
Kind of surprised, only just because I had him rated as one of the top 4 backs, and so I was expecting probably to take a quarterback here, and I, it could have gone either way. But I look at Elliott, and when I saw last year that, as we've talked about on the Audible several times, Dallas Cowboys supported the equivalent of 3 1,100-yard receivers, and Elliott was still balling out the way that he was. And, Bob's argument was pretty much, similar to mine, which is that he's going to close out games. He's going to get opportunities in the red zone. The addition of CeeDee Lamb is only going to make it more difficult for opposing defenses to play anybody, cheat towards anybody. So when you start playing things straight up, Ezekiel Elliott's going to have a good time with that.
Rude takes Michael Thomas. So you guys just, should I be insulted that I was able to take Lamar Jackson at 1-8? Am I the only person in the world that thinks that Lamar Jackson could actually be better and more productive? Anybody want to come over on the island with me, or does it make sense to at least be fading Jackson a little bit?
No, I thought really hard about that sig. Like, I actually went back and forth on him and Kamara quite a bit, especially even though I'd read enough to kind of feel like I wasn't going to worry that much about Alvin. But I thought, what was I saying right before my pick was, I'm going to do something different this year. And then I didn't. So, but Lamar was the other guy I was looking at. I was thinking of like going balls to the walls, but apparently not.
Bob, how much from last year's projections, last year's numbers, did you shave off of Lamar Jackson?
I should start talking about how much I shaved off last year and then regretted it. Got the old peer pressure, right? We do our projections, then we do a projections review and look at the outliers and trying to defend why you have Lamar Jackson rushing for as many yards and touchdowns and throwing for many yards as I did last year. And then, of course, he went and blew up. It's the same kind of approach this year, and even same somewhat with Patrick Mahomes, projecting him to bounce back up around 40 touchdowns. I think Jackson, to your point, very well could do as well as last year. I don't think he's going to have nearly the efficiency and the yards per or the touchdown efficiency in some of those that he had last year. That's almost impossible. But his offense is better, you could argue, and he could be just as explosive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did it all, especially with that Greg Roman coordinating and adding Dobbins to the mix. It's Baltimore and Dallas both are going to have they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. Tampa, for that matter.
Draft update. Adam Harstad, who may drop in a little bit later, takes Derrick Henry. And I would have definitely started Henry at 8 if Lamar Jackson wasn't there. The 100-yard bonus, the long touchdown bonus enhances him a little bit. Gene takes Dak Prescott. And Gene, I have to confess to you, I thought that Dak Prescott was going to be my number 1 pick in this draft, my pick at number 8 whenever the draft order was out. So we're on the wavelength. Why Dak?
Well, let me make this next pick first.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm really just trying to throw you off. As the defending champion,
well, I would have, not to delay this draft too much, I would have, Jackson and Henry were easily going to be my picks at 110. I didn't think Jackson would be available there, but if I was going to go running back, that was the end there. I'm debating here whether or not I probably would have thought about Dalvin Cook there. I mean, Chubb and Mixon and all these guys. If we're going to take a running back, that's probably where we're going to go. But living with that would have been the first thought anyway. I'm debating on whether or not I want to take another quarterback here.
Give us the thought process here. Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to. I would have taken Wilson here. That's probably where
Kyler Murray, the drop off from Wilson to Murray is too much.
Again, I'm just looking for offensive upside, and I think that it's probably there with Murray, but you guys had conversations about later round quarterback. So I'm going to stick with the absolute top of the ceiling here and make Matt laugh at me when I do this. So we're going to go there.
This would be good.
I took
there
Clyde.
you go. All
Woo!
right.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. See,
just sticking with the idea that I'm just the very best offenses, the very highest ceilings left on the board, and we're going to go there and see what happens. Mixon, Jacobs, all in the category there. I thought a little bit about Kyler Murray, but that's what we're going to do.
So draft update to everybody, and we put if you're in the chat room, the links are there if you want to watch the draft board as it goes along. Nick Chubb, Daniel Simpkins is 11th, takes Nick Chubb, and then Moral Tremblay goes quarterback, and I was really hoping to get George Kittle and Adam.
That was another thought there, but
so Moral goes Deshaun Watson and Wilson back-to-back with the quarterbacks. Daniel gets Dalvin Cook. Gene takes.
Now it's your turn. So
and now
we
it's
can
my
talk
turn.
a little bit while you pick.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
Let move Bloom to the side here a little bit, and we can talk a little bit about the idea of taking a tight end in the first round here. I mean, we can start 3 in this particular league. So Devin, I mean, you taking a look at what you start off with Kelsey there. I mean. Talk to us about the idea of why taking a tight end early here in terms of the merits of that, and maybe with the strategy of going even multiple tight ends early.
Yeah, I was going to say Kittle if he fell and just go with 2 tight ends at the top. To me, it's all about how I can differentiate in this league. So knowing that, quarterback, the top drafting at 4 could have won Elliott. I have some eyes on some guys later in the second that I could probably get, but looking at the tight end position in this league, what is it? 1.5 points per tight end. So really trying to bank on that 100 receptions, which is as good as 150 if he pulls it off with the 1.5. And then if I compare that to other tight ends that, 50, 60 balls, it's a significant gap between the top tight end, really the top 2 tight ends, and then the rest of the tight ends for me.
Very nice. So Bloom, listen, you go with Joe Mixon here.
Yeah.
You're not worried about the migraines or the contract or anything like that.
I just want to get part of the Joe Burrow comet. I want to hook my lasso on there and try to ride it. Maybe a little preview of a later pick, and maybe more than one later pick. I know that the Bengals don't usually strike us as exciting offense, and the offensive line could cause us to collapse. But I'm just smitten with the idea of watching Joe Burrow and watching Joe Mixon in an offense quarterbacked by someone like Joe Burrow. But I gave a lot of thought also to Devontae Adams there. Because I just think this is performance leagues. are the kind of league where we underestimate how much greatness. Josh Jacobs goes 2-6. Waldman, we'll get to hear his pick and hear his thought process. But performance leagues are interesting because it really elevates the value of the players that go bonkers. And it might not seem like much when you see the 3-point bonus or the 5-point bonus and the scoring, but when you play out the weeks and you see players being able to hit the 40s and how much that can tilt a week, then it really.
Speaking of 40s.
Yeah.
Matt Waldman takes the only quarterback older than him.
Oh,
right.
he took Tom Brady.
That's right.
So it's because of Leonard Fournette, right?
Oh, it absolutely has everything to do with Leonard Fournette because, he's going to catch 200 balls in that offense. No, but I mean, listen, you look at this particular situation, and this is the best skill group that he's ever had. I mean, you can argue the merits of Randy Moss and maybe, and what Wes Welker's able to do and Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez. But when you look at the collection of this talent that surrounds Tom Brady right now in terms of the receivers and tight ends, it's the best he's had all at once. And he may not have a record year, but I believe he's going to have a top 3 year.
It's going to be fun. It's going to New Orleans, Tampa Bay, week 1. The schedule makers.
Yeah.
Were
And
very
Atlanta
nice
can't
to
play
us.
defense either, and neither can Carolina. So these are going to be shootouts pretty much in the division. 8. There's going to be 8 games of shootouts. I love it.
Devin takes Austin Eckler. Andrew takes Devontae Adams, and Devin takes Austin Eckler. And I really wish that Adam was here because Adam says, Austin Eckler, are we drafting teams running back 2s already? Devin, what do you say to that?
It's all about upside for Eckler. I think he's probably one of the widest variance players in the first or second round. And I look at the games last year without Melvin Gordon and look at sort of project if he can even do 80% of that, he's a first round grade. So for me, I think that he's a guy that I'm sort of taking a shot on that if they use him the right way, he could have a huge upside this year.
I see the glass half full and the glass half empty with Austin Eckler. Bob, when you're on the clock, so I don't want to distract you too much. When we get back to that, I'll get your take on that. So I'll ask you. Let's go, Andrew. Devontae Adams. Pretty easy to feel confident in him at the 20th pick of a draft like this.
Yeah, I mean, I was. I'll be honest. Like, I had a couple of ways I wanted to go, and then you were talking about Devontae Adams, and I was like, yeah, that's just the football gods telling me just don't be stupid, don't be cute, just go with what I think is at that point one of the best value picks available. At, like you said, at 2.8 in this draft among this group of people. Adams is going to put up yards. He's going to put up touchdowns. I think the Packers offense is going to look pretty good this year. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, week 1, and I'm all about the week 1 hype. Green Bay against Minnesota. Although Minnesota's run defense, Gene, would you say Yannick Ngakoue is a play the run on your way to the quarterback kind of defensive end?
Yes.
I quoted you today on that, by the way. You put that one in the lexicon. And they lost Linval Joseph. So expect a lot of someone who hasn't been drafted yet, Aaron Jones. And we'll see whenever Aaron Jones gets drafted. Bob, Adam Harstad says in the chat, Bob Henry thinks that you should take Tyreek Hill here, Bob. Bob, did you listen to Bob?
That's the best when Adam loves.
I always say he's my favorite smart ass.
Yeah, exactly. He's my alter ego here, using my projections against me. This is like the funniest thing ever.
Gene,
on my picks. Yeah,
go ahead.
Clayton sniped me there. I was planning to take Kyler Murray, hoping he fell, but yeah.
I won't distract you while you're on the clock for your pick. Because Cecil took Aaron Rodgers and Mark Andrews. Gene, should Bob be at all worried about Tyreek Hill's hamstring?
Probably not. He was back to practice pretty quickly. It's been a week or more since he sat out, and there doesn't seem to be any signs of any setback. So it's plenty of time to get ready for the season, which would seem to be cramping, if not just the very lowest grade of strain. So I wouldn't think so, no.
Okay, folks, we're through 2 rounds here, and I'm just and Adam's here virtually, as he says. Aaron Rodgers, normally you don't have to scroll down that far to find a player this early. If you're with us tonight, and I'm seeing 80 people in the chat room. Thank you, folks. Cecil is live on the air, as Brian Sumner asks. Let us know who's your favorite draft, least favorite draft so far, least favorite picks. Bob, you go with Matthew Stafford, and I guess you, as someone who does projections, will know this, and also as a Michigander. Is that right? The right term, Michigander. Know that Matthew Stafford was actually very, very good before he got hurt last year.
Yeah, it's a risky pick. No doubt about it. I think the Lions offense is very underrated this year. A lot of potential there, a lot of talent. They got better depth than they've had for a while. And if he stays healthy, I really like the way he and Marvin Jones have been jiving. You got Galladay. Hawkinson can take a big step forward, and what Swift can do out of the backfield really gives him a lot of weapons. And Stafford has put up all-time career best numbers last year: efficiency, touchdowns, yards per attempt, everything. He seems to be really jiving with was Darryl Bevell, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to continue. My biggest worry is, of course, if that back deteriorates again, I have to defer to Gene there. What's the risk level on that? But he seems to be feeling pretty good, and I hope he can stay healthy.
Gene, let's defer to Gene. He's not going to be on the clock again for a little bit.
Yeah,
Matthew Stafford's back.
Yeah, should be fine. I mean, those type of back fractures are a fluke situation. It's not necessarily a setup for further concern, and it's not near the spine where you'd think it might lead to a degenerative condition. And he was fine through training camp here, so no worries there.
Devin, you get Kenyon Drake at 3-4, who is often a late first, early second down running back right now.
Yeah, it's all about upside. This entire draft for me is all about guys who can outperform their ADP. And taking Eckler, taking Drake, they're both high risk, high reward players, and taking both of them sets me up for either the Ricky Bobby strategy, either first or last.
As it should be in FESL OG. Bob, I was going back to you real quick because we didn't get a chance to schedule. I got to just get you on the couch early in the season because we didn't get a chance to do our annual couch session. Austin Eckler, it feels like there's a wide range of outcomes for him. It depends on what you think of Josh Kelly. Matt Waldman will nod along there. It depends on what you think of Eckler. It depends on what you think of Tyrod Taylor as a passer to running backs, or what you think of Phillip Rivers as a passer to running backs. How did you find that balance when you were setting Austin Eckler's numbers this year?
It really comes down to the overall offense and whether how that team is going to play this year. I always start with that: how big the pie is going to be, how many plays they're going to run pass ratio, things like that. Tyrod Taylor takes a lot of carries himself from even design pass plays. I don't think they'll be scoring nearly as many touchdowns as they did under Phillip Rivers. But without Melvin Gordon there, I think he's going to – I think it's an offset. I don't think the offense is going to be as good, but I think Eckler's going to have a bigger piece of the pie by virtue of Gordon leaving. I don't think Josh Kelly or Josh Jackson will be taking all of those vacated touches from Melvin Gordon. I like Kelly a lot. He's had a tremendous camp from all we've heard. I know he's one of Matt's favorites as well. But no, I think Eckler's a really good pick in the second round. He does have a lot of variance, as Devin talked about, but I think his floor is a lot higher than a lot of people give him credit.
For me, he's the only player that could have more receptions than Christian McCaffrey this year.
Yeah, it all revolves around Tyrod Taylor and how much he targets him. I know LaShawn McCoy had 59 receptions in his best year with Taylor, but McCaffrey could be better. I mean, it could just be that McCaffrey is Eckler's a much more efficient receiving back than even McCoy was at that point in his career, and it's going to be an interesting one to watch. Andrew, you're go Pack go with Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones, are you worried about A.J. Dillon? How do you feel about how Matthew LaFleur will treat Aaron Jones?
As some people may know, that I once upon a time I did the NFC North for Bleacher Report, and somehow ended up being accepted into the Green Bay Packers fandom. I'm not really sure, and I'm told I'm not allowed to leave. But so I have a lot of people I know who follow the team very closely, and I'm still good friends with Aaron Nagler, who does Cheesehead TV, and he was at training camp, and just listening to what he was saying, what other people were saying, this is not going to become like a super run heavy team. And I feel like LaFleur really likes what Jones brings to the table. And so I'm not really terribly worried about him seeing a significant decrease in carries. And I don't think they're going to try and spread it around so much. What'll be interesting, this is one of those things that I think is worth considering for drafts, is that, I joked earlier, well, if they play 16 games, then sure, Kamara can hit his totals from last year or whatever. But, the only concern I have with any running back situation right now is whether teams will hedge a little bit early to make sure that if something goes disastrously wrong throughout the season, they have a, COVID run or something like that, that they don't burn out one of their players. So that's my only concern with it. But no, I think Jones is going to have a really good season. I think LaFleur really likes the guy, and I think we're going to see a lot out of him this year. I am probably full up on Green Bay Packers, though.
So what you're saying is you're a homer.
Somehow, if I was,
Yeah.
I'm an adjacent homer. So,
Matt,
yeah,
go ahead.
I'd love to be able to pick more Jets, but no.
You'll have an opportunity in like the 15th round.
Yeah.
So Matt Waldman, you get James Conner in the 3rd round. I'm sure this is one you could have written in pen, but if you were using Matt Waldman's rankings, how high could you have taken James Conner?
Well, to quote David Dodds, I got 2 top 5 backs. And my second top 5 player, like basically in the 3rd round. So, and essentially that's how I believe it. So he was my 5th ranked back. Elliott was my 4th ranked back. So it was a must take for me. You look at this offensive line with the Steelers. It's a strong unit. Roethlisberger's back, got an extra year of experience for Deontay Johnson. And there you go with Daniel Simpkins taking Roethlisberger right there. And then Gene going with Jonathan Taylor, which is, I think, is about the time you would expect this guy to go off the board. You just look at the situation, and to me, I mean, they don't have another running back. I mean, I know there's talk about Benny Snell being in better shape. There's talk about Anthony McFarland, and Anthony McFarland needs a compass to figure out where the hole is at this point in his career, unless it's certain selected plays for him. So I think that Connor is, as long as he can stay healthy, and that's the risk that people, fear about him. But I think this is a guy who's in great shape, who's ready to go. Yeah,
and I think that the injury discount, I'm on the clock here, and I'm going to take Odell Beckham. The injury risk there is more than priced in. We know what he's done with the Steelers as the number 1 back. He's going to be the number 1 back. Benny Snell is the number 2 back. Still not really on a lot of people's radar. Gene, a question from the peanut gallery that I also want to ask too. I took Miles Sanders at 308 because, Miles Sanders was there at 308. Did I just get some sort of zonk?
Nope, I was going to take him. I mean, that pick there was going to be one of Connor, Sanders, Carson is what I was hoping for, and I got lucky when 2 of the 3 went, and then I don't know if it was a wide receiver or quarterback went there. So I was happy to get Carson, I guess, but no issues with Sanders. That's a nice spot for him for sure.
Yeah, well, how can you just to recap where we've been here? We had Drake, Aaron Jones, James Conner, Drew Brees went 3-7, and this is a quarterback heavy. As we talked about earlier, this draft we're maniacs about quarterbacks. Drew Brees goes 3-7, 3-9. Matt Ryan, Chris Carson, 3-10. Gene, Carson's hip, getting enough practice in to make you not worry. Not that there was a lot of worry.
Every single thing that was said about him through the offseason was reassuring. It wasn't something he needed surgery for. It's a little bit of a hiccup when, he's been away for some personal time, a couple of issues. So there's a conditioning concern a little bit, but since he's been back, things seem to be okay. And again, just looking for players that look like they're going to have lots of opportunity in a reasonable situation. Carson's been, when he's healthy, he's been the number 1 back in Seattle. Should be good.
Daniel Simpkins, 3-11. DeAndre Hopkins. Zach Ertz, I was hoping I could get Ertz at 4 or 5, but I should have known that's not going to happen. As Philadelphia has catastrophe in their offense, it seems that equals Ertz targets. Chris Godwin goes before Mike Evans at 4-1. Simpkins gets Roethlisberger. Dr. Gene gets Jonathan Taylor at 4-3. Mike Evans goes to Adam, and then I take Odell Beckham. So, Gene, I'll go back to you with Jonathan Taylor. I've been saying taking Jonathan Taylor is one of the things that's fun about fantasy football. Are you here to have fun tonight?
I'm always here to have fun with you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's
You sound like you're having a ball.
David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Miles Gordon. Any of those guys get you excited about anything? Drafting them right now seems like their upside is capped. Can you see a situation in which Jonathan Taylor ends up as a top 8 back? Absolutely. So I think that's I don't know, for me, like I said, I'm kind of, Devin and I are on the same page here where we're looking for, extreme upside, willing to tolerate a little bit of a bust risk. I don't know how much of a bust risk, Taylor is. I mean, Marlon Mack is still there, but definitely like where that could end up a little bit.
I think one of those old guys has some upside.
Which
I'm
one?
not going to say which one, but
Oh, yes. We'll find out soon.
We'll
Cliffhanger. Bob, it's still like 5 more picks until your pick. Tell me one of your favorite picks that was not made by you so far in this draft.
I like Gene's Jonathan Taylor pick. That's a nice. You look at his roster. He's got Edwards-Helaire and Jonathan Taylor, and then arguably my favorite quarterback for value in Dak Prescott. So
Yeah, he's going to repeat, isn't he? He's got and he's doing the right thing by not taking a wide receiver at all. But Matt Waldman, you're now a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
I figure if I pick them, then they'll suck. So, I always go AFC North first. But no, I mean, I didn't like Juju Smith-Schuster's value last year. I thought that people were underestimating all these rookie receivers surrounding Antonio Brown, and that they weren't going to be able to help work Juju Smith-Schuster open. Well, all those injuries kind of make that argument difficult one to prove. But I think this year, with the experience they have with the addition of Eric Ebron and Claypool and Deontay Johnson's experience, they're going to be able to function at least as a trio to do some of the same things that Antonio Brown could do in terms of pulling defenders away and allowing Smith-Schuster to do some work in the slot. I think he's going to be a high reception, high yardage player. And with a healthy Roethlisberger, I'm going to take shares in this offense.
Yeah, it's just a question to me of whether the target tree gets too wide with Eric Ebron and Chase Claypool and James Washington, Deontay Johnson. Matt, what do you think about all this buzz about Ebron and Claypool? Buying both, selling both, buying one but selling the other.
I've been buying Ebron in terms of what I think he's capable of doing. Chase Claypool, I mean, I think it's a prove it situation in terms of when the lights actually come on. And I think that's part of it too, is when you think about they're going to spread this too far apart. Come on, it's Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is going to go to his favorites. He knows who he needs to be able to count on, and he'll give a little bit of opportunity to some guys. And the minute they start screwing up, who he's going to feed the ball to. And it's going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. It's going to probably be Deontay Johnson, and it's also probably going to be James Conner.
Yeah, Conner's going to get his. Devin, the cliffhanger's over. David Johnson. This is a true leap of faith, but the wings might start to flap when you get out there.
Yeah, I just look at the rest of that roster, and Bill O'Brien paid a significant price to get David Johnson. He's going to have to. It's a bit of a narrative that he's going to want to use him a little bit. And the rest of the roster, Duke Johnson, Buddy Howell, Karan Higdon, there's nobody behind David Johnson. This is his show in that offense.
And I just want to see him get used in the passing game, really.
I mean, Carlos Hyde had, 1,100 yards last year, something like that. So David Johnson can get that plus receiving. There's upside there. And like all the rest of my team, it's significant risk, but I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. We're going all or nothing. Bob Henry gets Kenny Golladay at 4-11 after Clayton Gray gets Melvin Gordon. And I won't ask Bob anything yet because you're going to be picking again after 2 Cecil Lammey picks at the turn. Instead, I'll ask Andrew Garda, Josh Allen. And Josh Allen, usually the 7th or 8th quarterback off the board. I don't know the number in our draft as we're going, 12th, 13th. Were you surprised to see him there?
No, because I think generally there's still questions. I think, I was actually thinking he's still got some upside, and there's still some doubters out there. And So it doesn't shock me. We also went on a little bit of a run in other areas. We had a couple of tight ends go, and I feel like, Allen is one of those guys that people either really like or really don't. And so, I've kind of warmed to him over the last year or so, and I do really like the fact that he can scramble and get those yards. And since all of the quarterbacks that I liked who did that disappeared really early, Allen's like a pale replacement for it. So, and it hurts my Jets' heart to do that, but there you go.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole show on that. No, I mean, just the whole Jets thing.
Oh yeah. No, I knew what you meant.
It's quite a chapter. It's always entertaining. Wide receivers going now, and Bob, you got the stack, the Galladay Stafford stack. Then you get AJ Brown. Now, I want to ask you a very specific question about when you have a pick like this, where you have a pick and then two picks and then your pick. Do you do some sort of process where you weigh the two players you want the most and which one is more likely to make it to you looking at the other team's roster, or do you just not get cute with it and take the guy you want most and not play games with trying to guess who's going to be there at your next turn?
When I'm not double tasking and broadcasting with you, and I'm definitely looking ahead, looking at the turn and seeing what those owners or those people drafting are likely to do, and then just take the person I want. And especially if I have a choice of players at the other position, I know are going to fall back to me. I did not have the luxury of doing that here. I just saw Galladay there with Stafford, and he was the number one guy on my board at that spot. And then when AJ Brown fell back to me, I've been taking AJ Brown wherever I can. I love that guy.
Why?
Awesome year.
Why?
Why do I like AJ Brown?
Yeah, like give us some of the reasons.
I just think
love him.
He's an ascending player. He dominates pretty much every spot on the field, whether it's short or going long. And I think he's got a chance to see even more volume this year. And I think the Titans' pass volumes are going to increase this year. I don't think they're going to have another. I mean, they as low as they were last year, they have to throw the ball more. And he's just set up to continue to get better and better and better.
And Bob, I can ask you this because, again, you have to put it out there with projections. A.J. Brown won't be as efficient, or at least chances are we're not going to project him to be as efficient per target. But in his second year, he should get more targets, and it should be a better offense than it was with an entire year of Ryan Tannehill. Did you find yourself more towards his value coming from just still being that baller and converting so much of each target into value, or do you have him taking a volume jump from last year?
It's a little bit of both. I think when you have a player as talented as A.J. Brown, sometimes we overthink that they're going to come back to the pack and you're going to see some regression when you have to take into the fact that they're just simply a dominant player. They're still getting better, and their volume is going to increase. So any decrease in efficiency or regression is going to be offset by the opportunity they're going to have.
All right. Waldman, you go with Darren Waller. How much of Tyrell Williams' injury does this help nudge you towards, or would you have taken him even if Tyrell Williams' shoulder was intact?
I would have taken him regardless. I had Darren Waller as one of my top tight ends on the board. I think he was my number 3 tight end. And really, Tyrell Williams wasn't a factor in that at all. I think people are expecting some sort of regression where I think that, the small number of touchdowns opportunities that he had last year is actually more of his floor as opposed to, something that we're going to see over and over again. Certainly Jason Witten may have a say of that in the red zone, but there's a lot of inexperienced players on the field without any preseason games, without a lot of scrimmages. And I think Derek Carr is going to go to guys that he's familiar with. And Darren Waller could wind up having another high reception, high yardage, and higher touchdown season. And in this format, I just got myself a number 2 receiver in a tight end.
All right, I'm on the clock here, so I'm going to go ahead and take Terry McLaurin. Done. I would have taken Allen Robinson. Aaron Radnicki gets Allen Robinson at 5'7". I take Terry McLaurin. Anybody want to react either positively or negatively in the room to Terry McLaurin at 5'8"? Anyone? Is that boring of a pick?
It is
Bob?
kind of a boring pick, man. You're trying to be
That
hip and
sounds
you end
like
up getting boring. You're getting old, man.
A boring. Well, no. Hey, a boring pick tells me that at least in this circle and in the circle of fantasy analyst, he's arrived as somebody that belongs. And
He's the only game in town there.
Yeah, and he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, Waldman. I'll ask you as someone who's always putting the jeweler's eye. How do we? Gene takes Joe Burrow. I'm not going to get him now. How do we put in context what McLaurin did as a rookie? Because I think that people are underestimating the level of competition he faced and the amount of skill he demonstrated to not just hang but beat that competition.
Yeah, I mean, he played well. He was a good route runner. Certainly you got to understand, too, that either these games were tight or they were blowouts in situations where he's going to get the benefit of either, getting a fair number of targets. But considering the fact that he was playing with, quarterbacks who, were trying to figure it all out, I think this is a situation where you just got to give him credit for being a technically sound player who did well at the catch point and seems to understands how to work, seems to understand how to be a professional. And that's an important part of being a young player in this league. So, I mean, to me, I don't see I don't see him having like massive upside this year. But I certainly think that he's a quality player, and his value was good for where you picked him.
Yeah, I mean, 5th round is where a lot of people listening to the show might get him. Hopefully, y'all out there can get him in the 5th round without a super flex draft, without a bunch of quarterbacks going in front of them. Gene, you're here to have fun. Joe Burrow.
Yeah, it was between Burrow and Mostert. So I thought that I might have a little chance of getting Mostert on the other side a little bit. But yeah, just looking for guys, I think there's that Cincinnati offense. The offensive line isn't great, but there's enough weapons there where you can see Burrow complete a lot of passes and hopefully get in the end zone off enough for a second quarterback. I think there's as much upside there as there anybody else. Sorry, Bloom. McLaurin probably would have been my pick, and I'd have left Burrow there for you. But
Yeah. Oh well, if he would have fallen through the turn and all those picks, but that's okay. I have backup plans. Getting everyone out there caught up if you're going along with us. Number 5-9 is Le'Veon Bell, and maybe it's Le'Veon Bell wide receiver because Le'Veon Bell running back might not do too well, but Le'Veon Bell wide receiver might be okay. Joe Burrow 5'11", Daniel Simpkins goes. DK Metcalf. Metcalf was in consideration at 5'8" also. Metcalf could just start to dominate this year. All of our mutual friend Eric Stoner would say he's the next David Boston. Raheem Mostert just goes 2 picks after Dr. Dean was thinking about him. And then Cooper Kupp. And then Tyler Lockett as Daniel Simpkins pulls off the double dip on the Seattle receivers. Dr. Dean's on the clock again. I'll throw it to Devin. Right. I don't want to. Really, what I would love to do is actually hear the thought process on the clock, but I don't want to do that to anybody, and I'm not totally going to do that.
We need a wheel for you to spin.
do that if you want. I'm
Is
essentially, a handful of players that I was considering here at the bottom half of this round. They've all gone at the same time, so I'm at the top of my next few tiers. So that's why I'm just kind of going back and forth and deciding where I want to go.
I haven't checked out Peter Overzet, who, by the way, is just doing fantastic, like fantasy analyst meta. It's like somewhere between like satire and loving tribute. He has something called the Randomizer. I don't have time to consume a lot of other fantasy football stuff, but yeah, I know there's game shows, Dynasty Game Night by DLF. They're doing game show format on the podcast, so there's a lot of ways that we can branch out here. I'm just trying to find somebody who I know doesn't have to think about a pick. Bob, because you're up after Devin. Bob, tell me now, as it looks like, I'm going to go up and pull up your roster, Bob, and you've got only one running back, and I found myself in a lot of drafts really being willing to just kick running back 2 down the road again and again, and just hope that I make something work there. How do you like the idea of having to rely on maybe a later pick as your running back 2? Or are you feeling a little bit of urgency to get your running back soon?
When you have Christian McCaffrey as your first running back, you care less about your second running back, and you're willing to take a lot more shots at your second running back, and that's why I loaded up on receivers and tried to get somebody like Matthew Stafford, who wasn't one of my top targets. Like I wanted to get a Kyler Murray or Dak Prescott, but kind of felt like, when you pass on Lamar Jackson at 2 or Mahomes, who went overall, and take Christian McCaffrey, it's unlikely you're going to get one of those top 4 or 5 at the back end of the second. So I looked at Stafford there, as you pointed out, because look, if he's healthy and he continues to play like he did last year, he's going to be a top 5-6 quarterback. He's got the offense to support that. And then just load on receiver, and then, I can focus on building out the second running back with some upside guys.
Gene, your first. Go ahead.
Love the Robert Woods pick there.
As the fantasy community likes to call him, Bobby Trees. Gene, Robert Woods, maybe your first safe pick. Not as fun, but it's fun sometimes to be safe too.
No, I didn't have any fun with that pick at all.
It's hard to tell.
Well, we'll see. I'll have a little bit more fun with the next.
You can't have all the rookies.
Okay, so
that's true. I've turned into Cecil, haven't I, tonight?
You have. You're going to have to race to get the rookies. Cecil's going to end up taking Jerry Jeudy the next turn. Adam Harstad's on the clock as I wait. Okay, everybody, there's a quarterback I'm going to take at 6:05 if he's still there. Anyone want to guess the quarterback?
Danny Dimes.
No.
Cam Newton.
Cam. Yeah, that's right. Cam.
Good luck with that.
Oh, I hear that.
I like Devin's reactions to this. They're very honest, and I appreciate that.
It's wonderful, by the way, that Adam actually took Jared Goff, so I can go ahead and take Cam Newton. Skepticism, Devin. I know you're going to be picking like 4 picks. You want to expand a little bit on your Cam skepticism?
There's nobody in that offense. Cam's not running anymore. I don't know. I just don't see the upside.
That's fair. I mean, I would say there wasn't much really, he might be broken down. The way that Cam Newton is zonk this year is you say, like, yeah, just the injuries have caught up. He's just kind of a shadow of who he used to be. There wasn't much in the Carolina offenses that he was doing all that with. He might not have. He might have had more. It might have more. We'll see. No Mohamed Sanu, though. Did people like that, how everyone was funning on Ian Rappaport when he said it was a surprise and all the New England beats were saying that he was probably going to get cut? Matt, Mohamed Sanu back in Atlanta by the end of the week?
I would hope so, because Justin Gage, yeah, I know a lot of people seem to think that's like you're
on the clock. Sorry,
thing. No, it's okay. I already picked. I picked DJ.
Yeah, if I didn't take Cam, that was going to be the pick.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. I mean, I like the North Florida sanitation engineers. And this is what that offense is going to be. So I need the guy who's going to be going out to the curb and catching all those trash cans. And I think that's what we're going to get out of DJ Chark.
Andrew, you get your tight end now. We're just on the clock. Jared Cook. And again, a lot of people might not know, he was about a top 5 option once he and Drew Brees were healthy. Why was he the pick this year? 608.
I like his upside in terms of having a shot at repeating that. I don't know that he will, but especially in this league, I feel like he'll get enough catches to add some good points. And kind of just studying everybody's projections and everything, I feel like it's not a huge drop off to the next guy, but enough of a drop off to where I feel like you're projection wise, you're under what you might call like the triple digit fantasy points level. And so, I have waited on tight ends in this league almost every single year, and almost every single year it has burned me. So I decided not to wait any longer. And I think he's going to do enough to be a pretty solid start most weeks. And I if I had been really excited about a tight end, I would have gone earlier and figured out Kittle or Kelsey. And actually, Kelsey was one of the guys that I was thinking of picking with my first pick, but that didn't happen. So
yeah, and we're around 6, Devin, and you still haven't taken a wide receiver.
That's right.
And you do take Ryan Tannehill. Why do you think everyone is so skeptical about Ryan Tannehill? He was the number 2 quarterback once he took over, or at least in the second half of the year. You get him like quarterback 15. He's even later than that in a lot of drafts.
I think he's boring. I think that, people think that people think that the Tennessee offense is still the Marcus Mariota days, and then they remember Tannehill in Miami, and they think that it's a low upside player with an even lower floor. But we talked about AJ Brown and how much we like him this year in potential growth, and Tannehill's a guy who has upside. For quarterback 15, he can easily sneak into the 8 to 12 range, which is where I'm looking for him to finish. I think he has a high floor too. I think that he's a better quarterback than we think he is.
I think so too. Well, I think some of it is just Arthur Smith's play calling, honestly. And he's executing those plays. He had a low volume last year. If you go back and look at his volume, it was incredibly high efficiency. But we've talked.
But they don't ask him to do anything he can't do.
Right.
Is the benefit here? They're not asking him. Part of the Browns coaching staff last year is they asked Baker Mayfield to do everything when he's a limited quarterback.
And this year,
I'm glad you agree.
Yeah, no, it's funny, Matt. I used the bumper bowling. I used the bumper bowling metaphor. I gave you credit for that, and somebody said they were listening to the show when I said that and just bust out laughing, like they couldn't hold it in. Whenever I think it was our man KGB, as Bob gets Kareem Hunt. Bob's going to pick again after Cecil takes 2 picks here. And by the way, since it went DJ Chark, Jared Cook, Devin takes Ryan Tannehill. Daniel Jones, there's Danny Dimes. He goes next to Clayton Gray. Good luck against Steelers week 1. Bob Henry takes Kareem Hunt, and Cecil takes Devin Singletary, and then we're waiting. And yes, Cecil, it was asked earlier in the chat room, is Cecil on the air? Yes, Cecil is on the air right now. So Cecil always a one-man band when it comes to fantasy football. It's going to be a little while before you pick 5, 6 picks, okay? Looking at your team to date, the Matt Waldman squad has Elliott, Brady, and Philip Lindsay as the pick for Cecil Lammey. Elliott, Brady, Connor, Juju, Waller, Chark. You thinking about your second quarterback, Matt?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I've gone deep in this league waiting, so it just depends on who's available to me. I'm thinking really about 3 different positions at this point right now, and there's some players that I find really appealing. So we'll see what happens between Bob, Clayton, Devin, and Andrew. What's going to come up here, but I feel I'm pretty happy with the situation as it stands. I feel like that within this league, if you feel like you've gotten players who are at a value and can be an advantage, and you have strong players every week, you can kind of stream that second quarterback, or you can get a player that's a little bit later in that thing. And Bob just took one of the players that I really wanted, and I was hoping he might come back to me, but knowing that Bob had waited on running backs, he takes J.K. Dobbins, which I think at this stage is a really nice pick because they're already talking about him getting a chunk of playing time early, that's what they're going to do, which basically means we're trying you out for the role, and Mark Ingram can, basically be our backup and be happy about that if he still wants to be on the team. And I think J.K. Dobbins, because of how well he's played in training camp at this point and how early they're talking about that, he may prove why he was at least the RSP's number 1 back, in rookie formats this year.
So, Bob, this is a great illustration of drafting technique, because we even talked about it, kind of foreshadowing that you didn't have your second running back. And, maybe if it goes back to what Devin was saying with, go big or go home. Both of these picks at the turn, Hunt and Dobbins, illustrate basically what you're talking about, that you have Christian McCaffrey, so you can afford to swing from your toes at running back too.
Exactly. I didn't necessarily go into that thinking I was going to take running back there, but Clayton sniped me twice with quarterbacks with Kyler Murray and then Daniel Jones. I actually liked Tannehill that Devin took. Safer pick, but honestly, he's not even that safe. He's just a very productive quarterback, especially on a per-snap basis of the amount of opportunities he actually has. But considering I swung for the fence a little bit, took some risk with Stafford, I was looking for somebody like Tannehill or Goff or Roethlisberger as my second guy.
Devin, you run up to the podium. Go ahead. Sorry if I talked over someone there. Devin, you ran to the podium to take Keenan Allen, and Keenan Allen in the 7th round. That's not usual. Why the quickness with the clickness?
I was hoping he was going to fall to me. I don't have a wide receiver. I've taken a number of upside players, and I figured I wanted to go a little bit safer here. It gives me 80% of the Chargers offense in Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. So I'll take that and just hope that they exceed and have some sort of offense this year.
Waldman takes Gronk smash right after Andrew Goddard takes DeAndre Swift. Waldman, we heard Peter King say, I don't even know if he's going to lead the team in snaps. It's been kind of a quiet summer from Gronk. I'm usually the emotional one trying to recapture old glory here. Why Gronk at 7'6"?
Because I actually do read trading camp reports and for the team that I write for, as opposed to, I don't know what Peter King's hearing, and maybe he's talking to people, and he may not lead the team in snaps, but it seems like every writer in existence who actually is there every day says the rapport between he and Brady's there. He's playing like he's been, he looks as healthy as he's been in the past 5 years. That his back isn't an issue, that he's not wearing the brace, that he and Brady are threading the needle on tight window throws. And, there's that red zone thing, which, there will be other options who are going to have opportunities in that red zone. But they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets. So maybe he won't block as much because he won't lead in snaps because, O.J. Howard's a great blocker. So what does that mean? They'll rest Gronkowski a little bit. Maybe he won't have to do the dirty work as a blocker as much. So technically, he won't lead the team in snaps. So what? I'll take that as my second tight end in a 1.5 PPR league with Tom Brady as my quarterback. Sure.
And even if he's third in snaps on that team, they're all going to be high value when he's on the field.
Right.
So really quick, and you can lead off, Matt, since you brought it up. As I'm waiting for Aaron, and then I'll get my pick in. And then, by the way, Adam said that he was going to take Newton, but he left him there for me. So again, Adam Harstad with us here in spirit, maybe with us here in person later.
He's kind of like Gazoo to
yes,
Fred Flintstone. Jason Woods, Fred Flintstone, because we got to make fun of Wood while he's gone because that's how we give him love. We're going to send him some love. Tyler Higbee's a great pick.
Oh, is that who Aaron went with? Yeah, I'm thinking about tight end here, and y'all are probably making me feel like it could be time to take tight end with 2 tight ends. And it's interesting to get into the psychology of the draft, right? Maybe I wasn't looking tight end, but then 2 tight ends go right before me. And this is what's fun about picking at the turn, is you can try to kick off runs and things like that. But I have had my eyes on one player here going along. Need another wide receiver.
Don't do it.
I really, when I see
no, you're fine.
Make Gene cry.
Do what you're going to do, because I'm not worried about that play.
No. I'm not. It's not that 2 initial injury-prone receiver. It's T.Y. Hilton.
It's that injury-prone receiver.
Well, but Gene, he made it through the summer. Tell me this is okay. I need your reassurance at every pick.
Sure. If you think Phillip Rivers can get the ball anywhere near him.
Ooh. I guess Gene's not going to take Phillip Rivers as his third quarterback.
No, I'm not.
But he's been practicing in full, all clear after the hamstring that put him on the NFI to start the training camp.
The thing for me with these are always, you want to see that the sooner they get back, the better, in terms of, if teams are really worried, they won't bring them back until a week or so before the regular season. And then when they do come back, if they make it through 7 to 10 days without any setbacks, then you're in a really good spot.
So I got my third wide receiver there. Really quickly, Gene, on Rob Gronkowski, is it sound to posit something like he could feel better or be less prone to injury because he took the year off, or is that actually something that could make him more vulnerable to injury because he had to get back in football shape?
I think you could make an argument for both. In his case, I think any extra time he has to recover primarily from the back concern is going to be huge. Degenerative disc situations never go away, but the longer period of time from which you're taking smash hits and everything else is going to allow you to be okay. And then you just wonder, is his conditioning okay? But in the way that Tampa Bay seems like they're going to use him, with a quarterback that knows exactly where and how to get him the ball, I'm with Matt. I don't think you worry that much about whether or not he gets 20 snaps a game, because he could easily get 5 to 6 high leverage targets, and that's all you're really looking for anyway.
and that's the thing, right? I mean, if Gronkowski's a hit, it's going to be on the touchdowns. But then, and this is where I go to Bob. Well, I don't want to take you away right now. You're not picking for a while, Bob. How much does Rob Gronkowski throw a monkey wrench in Mike Evans, in Chris Godwin, when we try to break down these numbers, because it was the Godwin Evans show last year, but it's the Brady Gronk show this year?
I just think it makes the overall offense bigger, like you always say. The pie gets bigger here. I don't necessarily look at it as Gronk's taking it away from them. I think good luck defense is guarding them all or keeping them all bottled up. If anything, you might say Cameron Brate might be stealing some of the love from any of those guys because he's so damn efficient in the red zone. He's just the guy that, pulls the rug out from O.J. Howard, now Gronk, maybe Evans, all of those guys. So I could see Brate having like 22 catches and having 8 touchdowns just because. And that's the ultimate Brady thing. He loves to do that kind of stuff. I mean, what's his name? The Titans coach, right? When he was playing for the Patriots, he'd come in and catch 3, 4, 5 touchdowns for them.
Right. And, are we buying, Matt, that the Tampa's going to be a 2 tight end offense primarily?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were one of the top offenses last year in 2 tight end sets in terms of percentages. It's only going to go up, and it gives them. It's such a difficult alignment for most defenses to defend when you have 2 good tight ends, because then you can also go multiple, and which means that pre-snap, Tom Brady's going to read the defense. He's going to decide they'll start in 12, but then they'll end up in 10 or 11. Or they'll even put a guy in the backfield and go 21. So there's a lot that they can do that really drives defenses nuts. And it means that you can end up with guys like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin in the slot and your tight ends on the outside. And that really can screw up things in terms of assignment sound defense. And then you get easy mismatches. And a guy like Tom Brady with that quick processor that he has is going to, be able to do that. And then you just start messing with the tempo on top of that. And going quick tempo on a couple of plays where you catch the defense in a certain personnel set. So yeah, when you have a great quarterback and then you have great skill talent around that, basically you're just giving the quarterback more opportunity to tap into his upside, as opposed to, who do we pick because someone's going to eat into somebody else's looks. It's not as much that as the way Bob described. Bob described that exactly the way I think that it's going to be.
And of course,
Go ahead. The other thing I would add there, Sig, is, we talk about Mike Evans and how you could say inefficient he's been. I don't know how inefficient he's been as much as Jameis Winston has taken advantage of his large catch rates and ability to go win jump balls. But Tom Brady might not have the arm that Winston has, but I think he's going to be a hell of a lot more accurate in his. I'll bet you he catches. He could gain another 3, 4, 5, 6% in his in the amount of targets that he actually converts to catches this year. Tom Brady there versus Winston. So I think he'll make up, more or less on the loss of targets with Gronk and other folks in that offense. And the overall offense is going to get better. He's going to have more looks. I think his numbers are going to stay the same, if not even better.
You can't script it any better than this. Actually, Phillip Rivers goes right before Dr. Gene's pick, so you had to be relieved, Gene. And you take Tyler Boyd.
Oh,
I'm not happy with
Boyd Burrow combo.
Yeah, I would have had more fun with Marquise Brown, I think, but we're going to stack Gallup with Prescott and Boyd with Burrow and see where we get with that.
Yes, stacks are all the rage now. And, I get it. I mean, especially in a league like this, like Devin was saying from the beginning, it's upside. It's weekly upside. Boyd with the pick in Penn, and maybe I should have taken him over T.Y. Hilton. More wide receivers, the wide receiver rich part of the draft here, as after I took T.Y. Hilton, it was Mark Ingram, Michael Gallup, Marquise Brown. Gene gets Gallup at 7'10", as he was alluding to. Devontae Parker, Stephon Diggs, so wide receiver run there, and then Phillip Rivers and Tyler Boyd, and we wait on Adam, and then it will be my pick. Andrew, your pick isn't coming up too quickly, real quick, as we've been talking about this. Give me a pick, knee-jerk reaction, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, week 1. Who do you like?
Oh, that's you know what? I know that the Tampa Bay Bucks are all like new look, Tom Brady, Gronk, all of that. I still like New Orleans. I still feel like that's sort of the team to beat there. And, I mean, Tampa Bay, maybe it's just I'm paranoid about it. I feel like Tampa Bay is one of those teams that like every year I'm like, oh, it looks like this could be the year, and then they burn me. So like maybe I'll reverse jinx it or something here. I'll pick New Orleans, and Tampa Bay will actually have a good first week, but I'm going with New Orleans. I just think they've got too much going on both sides of the ball.
They'll love hearing that down here. Gene, again, I make a pick Evan Ingram. As after Adam at 8-4 takes Jarvis Landry. It's one that I didn't want to take. I didn't plan on taking. They made me do it, Gene. Was it okay with all the injuries he's had?
They made you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
People
okay.
don't realize how scripted these are. Like
Yeah.
this is none of us pick these randomly. It's all scripted.
Is he okay,
Yeah, I don't-
Gene?
Yeah, I think he's okay. I'm just not too jazzed about the Giants' offense. So, I mean, somebody's got to catch passes in those situations, I guess. So, why can't it be Ingram, right?
Gene, everyone's in love.
or
Go
the
ahead.
guy with the sticks.
I'm throwing cold water on every one of your picks tonight.
It's
Yeah.
good. You should. And everyone loves your receivers. Look, fellow KGB, what's up, man? Says Gene's wide receivers heart. Dave O'Dave says 2 nice receivers for Gene on that turn. After everyone spotted me, Lamar Jackson, Gene now has Dak Prescott and Joe Burrow at quarterback. I love that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, Jonathan Taylor running back. Love that. And then just in his 6th, 7th, 8th, got Woods, Gallup, and Boyd. And granted, folks, this is a super flex league. So players at wide receiver and running back are getting pushed down a little more than usual. However, this should show you how deep wide receiver is because, people should be loving those wide receivers. Matt, you get maybe the number 1 receiver from the Dallas Cowboys with your pick.
Yeah, I mean, certainly may have been able to take him later. It depends, in certain formats, I probably would have been able to take him a round or 2 later, at least. But knowing how good he is, knowing that he's going to get a lot of slot time alternating with Cooper, knowing that this offense is a strong one, and that the Cowboys pretty much said he was the best offensive player, one of the best offensive players on the team already, based on what they've seen in camp. I felt like it was the right time to pull the trigger on him and to get him as my 3rd receiver.
Yeah, everything, folks. If you haven't been tuning in too much to camp reports, everything coming out of Dallas with CD Lamb. Matt, are you surprised that he would be a quick study and basically captivating, not just onlookers but even his teammates in his first camp?
No, because he was the best route runner in this class, and that's even with Jerry Jeudy getting that reputation. CD Lamb is a more efficient route runner. He's also a faster player in terms of short area speed and quickness, which Jerry Jeudy actually has slower short area quickness. That's why he relies on some of those kind of ankle breaking moves, trying to make multiple moves early in a route to tell a story so that he can fool a man and then take that kind of longer acceleration that he needs to get up to speed. Whereas I think with Lamb, he's a player that's also a little more proven in the middle of the field in terms of his toughness. I know that Jerry Jeudy can do it, but he had to do it more in spring games versus the Alabama defense, as opposed to actually in games where he was actually wide open in zones or playing man-to-man where he ran certain routes that were more on the perimeter and those types of situations. So I just think Lamb is, you look at what Lamb has to offer, in terms of after the catch, but most of all, the efficiency of his routes and his blocking. I think those 2 things make him a real asset and that he can play multiple positions.
All right. We have now, as we wait for Devin Knotts, the pick before Aaron is Baker Mayfield. The pick after, the pick before Matt is Aaron taking Baker Mayfield. Were you a little sad to see Baker Mayfield go there, Matt? Were you thinking about him? Because I know you like Mayfield to bounce back a little bit.
Bounce back a little bit, yeah.
Dead cat
a little
bounce.
bit. Dead cat bounce, probably, yes. I would say that. Or dead elf bounce, I think, probably more, in terms of if we're going to be Browns appropriate here.
Does the Browns elf have a name? Speaking of the great Gazoo.
No, but we can call him Adam if we'd like.
This is great. We got to get Adam in here later on tonight, hopefully, so we can tell him that. Andrew, you take Raquel Armstead. Clayton takes TJ Hawkinson. Raquel Armstead, you're buying him as the new number 1 for Jacksonville.
I think he has the upside for it, and looking at my running backs right now, I think it's okay for an upside pick for my 4th running back. And I too read the training camp reports. In my case, of teams I don't cover, and I like everything that I heard leading up to training camp. I've read Matt's analysis of him in terms of his overall speed and burst. I don't know that he's going to be a huge, I don't think he's going to be like an RB top 5 by any stretch, but I think at this spot, for running backs, he gives me the flexibility to throw him in there. If he gets hot, I can ride him for a little while, but I don't need to depend on him because I've got Kamara, I've got Jones, so I'm kind of set there. And also, Matt, as he has done several times in this draft, kind of sniped my pick by taking CeeDee Lamb, but that's okay, Matt. I still love you.
I appreciate that. It's all in good fun.
It's all love. And Devin, you're going to have to love Cam Newton a little bit. And the question is, are you worried about Gunnar Olszewski stealing targets from Julian Edelman?
No.
Julian Edelman, what else is there to say except if he's still there at this point in the draft, it's kind of hard to say no.
I mean, Cam we talked about his limitations, and I think he's going to lock on to Edelman quite a bit and just try to, move the ball that way. I don't view Gunnar Olszewski, or however you pronounce it,
the pride of Bemidji State.
Yeah, as who played corner at Bemidji State.
Yeah.
I don't view him as a threat.
Bob Henry takes Hayden Hurst. I thought about taking Hayden Hurst instead of Evan Ingram. When I say they made me take Evan Ingram, I wanted to take Hayden Hurst, but I took Evan Ingram, and I'm probably going to regret it. Bob's on the clock, so I won't distract him too much more because Cecil takes Leonard Fournette. So on this draft, at least, here's your data point, folks. It is a super flex draft, but Leonard Fournette goes 8-12 and before Ronald Jones. And then I told you I was going to take Jerry Jeudy. I thought it'd be the 6-7 turn. It was the 8-9 turn. And Cecil said, wherever you're drafting Jerry Jeudy, it's probably not high enough.
So in your normal league, how high do you think Fournette will go?
That's a tough one, man.
The common league with a bunch of friends, I think he goes
6th round.
Third or
still in the
fourth round.
4th? Yeah. It's possible. I mean, that's the thing so here's a little pontification, right? I'll go off on a tangent, and then we can pass the conch around here. I think that fantasy football, this is where fantasy football in some ways alters people's perception of players, because yes, Fournette was very productive last year. He's not going to get 300. Does anybody think he's going to get 250 carries even for Tampa?
No,
200 even.
Yeah,
250 touches is in the realm of possibility.
But does that mean that he really pushes Ronald Jones aside? Because 250 touches is what we were hoping for Ronald Jones.
I think it's reasonable to say in the range of outcomes that Fournette is the top guy, but at the same time, I think it's reasonable to say Ronald Jones is the top guguy.
Right. So, Bob, I know you haven't done this yet. Did you take your pick? I don't want to distract you too much. Deontay Johnson. Yes. Bob, just, you have to go back to the drawing board. You have to put yourself out on the line, like these specific data points. Just what's your starting point? Your ending point you might not know until you get there. What's your starting point for how to reflect Leonard Fournette in the Tampa projections right now?
Yeah, I gotta really think about that. You have to imagine he's going to take the lion's share of the early down work there. And even from that matter, he could even take a lot of the third down work away from Dario Ogunbowale. Having said that, I don't know how they just go away from Ronald Jones. I think he still could be their most explosive player in the backfield. Right. And it's a gut punch. And not just because I have a lot of player shares of Ronald Jones, I'm really looking forward to seeing him in this offense and take that next step. He really started showing. I thought he started showing more last year. I know he didn't have the most efficient year, but he was actually pretty productive in the passing game.
His rate of broken tackles was one of among the best in the NFL last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he got the fit. I mean, Matt, it's a good fit, at least in terms of the running game and the style of running back.
It was, yeah. I mean, are you talking about both
Fournette
of those
in Tampa,
guys? Or?
Fournette in Tampa, or Ronald Jones, because he has turned into a tackle breaker.
He's very much turned into a tackle breaker. Speaking of tackle breakers, I just took one for Buffalo. But when you're talking about Jones, I mean, certainly he's a guy that the biggest question is pass protection and hands in terms of the receiving game. I mean, he caught a number of balls, but he's also dropped a lot in training camp. And even though he came in and there was a lot of improvement there, I think Tom Brady giving him the tips that he had, he probably took some time to actually acclimate that, because now Tom's making him think all over again after he worked on whatever he was working on, like, drop your weight and now, run your routes with your weight dropped as if you already have the ball. I'm sure he's thinking about doing that. And now the ball's bouncing off his hands and he's reverting back to old habits. And that assimilation isn't going to work out all that well, as you're trying to do that in practice and be the lead back, And so I think that with Fournette, you get a guy who you get a backfield that can be situational. You can kind of play either guy. You can add LaShawn McCoy into that mix. It just gives them a lot of weapons. It's just hard now because in terms of thinking of a split, in terms of how that's going to work out. I mean, you could easily see Jones be the big guy still and Fournette not be much of a factor, but you could easily see it completely reverse the way Devin sees it, which is, Fournette's going to get 200 to 220 carries, and then somewhere around, or maybe 160 to 180 carries, and then maybe, 50 to 60, targets, maybe catching 45 to 60 balls, somewhere in that range. So it's pretty interesting. You took Brandon Cooks, who's sitting there. It's a really nice value, for getting a receiver who may be the best receiver on that team in terms of production value and consistency and durability. So, I mean, Bloom, tell us a little more about Brandon Cooks.
This is the year I'm finally in on Cooks, right? Just texting with our mutual friend Eric Stoner. He said, Cooks, this is the year to take Cooks. He does have experience, 2,000-yard seasons with a new quarterback. I think that we can count on Deshaun Watson to elevate at least one or two players in this offense. It could be David Johnson. It could be Devin's fourth-round pick. It could be someone who hasn't been taken yet. It could be Randall Cobb, who I will. It's an 18-round draft, but I will take Randall Cobb before the end of the draft if no one else will. It could be Will Fuller, if Will Fuller can stay healthy. Gene, Will Fuller officially injury-prone, even though you hate the term?
He's not injury prone.
Yes. Love it. Got to get more of it. And especially in a league like this with the distance touchdown bonuses, Brandon Cooks fits well there. So yeah, this is the year. I go back and forth every time I do my rankings. Should I put Fuller first or Cooks first? Because I like a healthy Fuller more, but I think Cooks has a better chance of staying healthy. Other picks, by the way, Matt, you took Zach Moss. In 9-6, some of it's super flex, but he may have to be a 6th or 7th round pick for you to get him. You got him in the 9th. Is this a guy that people should be willing to reach early to get?
Yeah, I believe so, because you're talking, to me, what makes a good fantasy running back is the offensive line. And the Bills have a good enough offensive line as in terms of a run team. We saw that with Devin Singletary. We've talked about it every week on the Audible, which is that, if the offensive line running back thing is a marriage, then basically Devin Singletary was the equivalent of a pampered housewife or house husband, in that marriage last year, because a lot of yards before contact. He broke a lot of tackles, but he also had a lot of room. And when you take a look at a situation like Zach Moss, who's already showing a little more burst, showing a little bit and showing a lot more in terms of his power, showing that he could catch the ball out of the backfield, people are already talking about what we talked about earlier this spring, which is could be a flip-flop situation by the end of the year with Moss as the lead back and Singletary playing the scat back role. And I think that's how that's going to wind up being, because Moss is also a very good pass protector. I mean, at Utah, I know it's a big difference. I mean, both Devin and I talked about this with Clyde Edwards-Helaire on our message board. There's a big difference between pass protection in the NFL and pass protection in college. But the fact that you can leave at Utah, they could leave Zach Moss against a defensive end or an outside linebacker, and he did the job well repeatedly with good technique. He may have to be a little slow on the pickup with pass assignments and being assignment sound, but I think in terms of actually being able to do the job, he's going to be pretty good. And I think he may be even already better than what Singletary brings to the table.
Bob, how much have you adjusted your Buffalo backfield projections over the last month?
Consistently. I've just been consistently every time I go back, Zach Moss. Loved him in the draft. Loved his landing spot there. You think about Frank Gore and what he did and all the opportunities he had at the goal line that he didn't convert, that Josh Allen converted. And now you put Zach Moss in there, who can also contribute in the passing game. I think he could take over this backfield this year. And that's no slight to Singletary at all, but I really like Zach Moss and the fit in that defense and just the mindset that team has. I think he's a really good fit there.
While we're on the subject, since you're not picking again for like 10 more picks, just to keep people updated, AJ Green goes right after my pick at 9-9. And I was going to have to get reassurance from you, Dr. Gene, on Green, but I decided to go with Cooks instead. Dr. Gene takes Mike Gesicki. Hunter Henry goes at 9-11. James White, safe running back too. It's just running back wasteland now after.
I'd like to thank you guys for giving me David Montgomery at 9-4.
Well, Dr. Gene, you want to chime in on that?
Sure.
Oh, you're up.
Chicago.
Hold on. Take your pick.
Oh, am I up?
Yeah.
Oh, there's no worries. Hold on.
Then we'll get back to you.
No, I don't have too much concern about David Montgomery. Groin injuries are one of those things where you generally don't seem to be too concerned with a higher grade injury, because a lot of those, there's enough redundancy in those groin muscles to where even if it's torn off the bone, they allow it to heal, and once the swelling and pain goes away, they're able to go. Which is unlike some other injuries in the core abdominal muscle category, or hamstrings or quads. It's not a huge issue. Now he's got to recover through that without any issues, but I think he may not be there right away in week 1 and week 2, but I don't think this is going to be a 6 to 8 week situation like many other higher grade muscle strains would be.
As my RB4, I will gladly take him.
Yeah, well, and you just want some cooperation from whoever wins the quarterback. Bob, I'll ask you again. Who do you have handicapped, or do you just split it right down the middle in the Chicago quarterback situation of the projections right now?
Who cares?
Exactly. Spoken like a good Lions fan as they face week 1. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, I guess you kind of care if you have Anthony Miller or Allen Robinson, or I don't know. But you're right. You're right. It's the least.
Allen Robinson cares.
Yeah. Poor Robinson. Where do we want Robinson to play next year? We shall see. Gene, you take Emmanuel Sanders. And...
What? Was it Matt? Yeah.
Bobby Trees is your friend.
He sniped my pick.
Sorry.
I have
a good pick
here.
That was between a couple of other players. Matt, I'm sure there's somebody there left for you that is in that similar range that you'd like.
Possibly, yes.
Possibly.
We were probably deciding between the same 2 or 3 players, I would guess.
Yeah.
I'll take
Maybe.
I'll take one of the guys that Matt might be looking at.
But I'm probably passing on that guy anyway, and I think Bloom just took him.
Yes,
there you go. See,
I just went with a better offense. It was Sanders versus Jones, and
yeah, I think it was a good call. But Jones is a nice pick too. I mean, both of those guys are solid, excellent route runners. Can pretty much play multiple positions on the field, paired with good quarterbacks. Terrific mid-round picks, and I'm just going to go with my second quarterback at this point, and might as well again go with the lead sanitation engineer of the garbage time drafting strategy here, and go with Gardner Minshew.
Yeah.
Oh dear,
love it.
I'm afraid you were going to do that.
No, hey, I mean, he looks like he's ready to take his job seriously. He's got DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault. Jay Gruden, wants to pass. So, hey.
And I mean, he took his job seriously last year. The guy, people were wondering if he was even going to make the roster, and he outplayed Nick Foles, which to a lot of people may seem like that's not a stretch, but considering that you're a college player who's a late round draft pick in a Mike Leach offense, moving on to Jacksonville, and showing the pocket presence that he did. Now that's a pick, Preston Williams.
Yeah, I was going to
That's
just
a
say,
fantastic
dude,
pick
dude,
right
dude,
there.
dude, Devin, you get like the best pick in the last 3 or 4 rounds. Preston Williams. Were you waiting? Were you sweating this one? Because
It was once Crowder went off the board, I was a little bit nervous, as those are the 2 guys I had queued up. But Williams, I mean, the ceiling on him is pretty significant. And I know we talked about injury prone, but Devontae Parker has a little bit of that syndrome too. So Williams, to me, is the number 1 receiver in that offense.
Gene, any pause on Preston Williams coming back from the ACL?
Yeah, he was the other one I was considering. Mostly the reason I went in the other direction was a little bit nervous about how Miami's quarterback situation shakes out later in the season when we get to the playoff weeks. I had just taken Mike Gesicki, and I didn't want to put too many chips on that Miami passing offense. But yes, those were the 3 players I was considering. I ended up I'm going to go with Drew Brees over those other 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, the reports of Tua is not looking good.
Yeah, slow. I mean, and it's interesting because, Matt, I think that a lot of people had Tua and Burrow pretty close in terms of career arcs, but it sounds like at least from the first camp perspective, Burrow showed up maybe a little more ready than Tua. But what should we expect to see when Tua does take over?
I mean, I think for Tua, you're going to look at him in a situation where, again, he's going to need to rely a little bit more on the play action rollouts. They're probably going to have him read one side of the field early on in his career, and do that with the rollout game. And as a result of that, you're talking about maybe him not making the same level of sophisticated reads that maybe Joe Burrow might early on, because Burrow really played in a true NFL style offense. But the only thing that's the problem too is that I'll say this on the air because I think I can get away with it on the air as opposed to what I did on Twitter. But I saw a picture of Joe Burrow and I apologize to anybody who's deeply religious, but I'll just say that Joe Burrow kind of dragging that blocking sled that he had. There's a picture of him kind of dragging that. Kind of looks like something that he might be carrying, in a crucifixion sort of way if the offensive line lets him down. And I think he's going to be in a bad situation if this offensive line doesn't hold up, and it doesn't look good. So yes, he can scramble, but both of these quarterbacks, it'll be fascinating because Burrow started off looking good, but I think Miami might have a better offensive line at the end of the day. And so he may start later in the year, but he might actually play better later in the year because he's very good downfield. Burrow still has to prove that he has enough of an arm to make those plays. And I think that Tua can do a little bit more from an improvisational standpoint because of his arm talent. That's the small difference between them.
Yeah, something to watch.
And LSU had a dominant offensive line last year. So how Burrow actually plays under pressure is going to be a big challenge. For sure.
And that's when you have the Joe Moore award-winning unit, the top line in the league, and defenses aren't used to seeing an NFL style offense in terms of the types of option routes they ran on a consistent basis. I think it's one of those scenarios where you have to, seriously understand that he's going from the very best situation in college football to one of the worst situations possibly in the NFL from an offensive line standpoint.
It's going to be.
I'm just mad about Emmanuel Sanders, Gene. That's all that was.
And some good picks coming off the board, by the way, as we talk. Bob Henry gets a rookie duo here. One goes to Bob Henry, one goes to Cecil. Henry Ruggs to Bob Henry. And after Clayton Gray takes Las Vegas Raider quarterback Derek Carr, this was following Devin's Preston Williams pick that we were fawning over. And then Cecil makes a great combo pick. Cecil from the Devin Knott School of drafting here with Antonio Gibson, who at 10-12 is a value based on where he's been going. And Mecole Hardman, which you have to love with a distance touchdown bonus here. Bob takes Drew Lock, and Clayton takes an excellent pick. Sterling Shepard, probably the number one wide receiver for the Giants, as we march into the 11th round. And
which boring running back do I take?
They're all boring.
No, these are the two most boring in the league.
Jordan Howard.
That's one of them.
Right.
I like boring in that respect, but hey.
Adrian Peterson is the other one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I like that a little better.
Yeah, these are your two running backs. Most
Adrian
likely.
Peterson, boring.
Yeah, that's kind of
35.
I guess if you know, I guess if you don't
I know what you
appreciate
mean, though, Devin. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Old guy, not a lot of upside. I guess
True.
Frank Gore would have been in that conversation too, but it's a little early for Gore.
Right.
Yeah, Gore's for those point per carry leagues because that's it's going to take about 10 carries for him to get 30 yards here. Adrian Peterson, so it's Sterling Shepard, Adrian Peterson, Andrew Goddard takes Noah Fant, and then Waldman gets another rookie wide. There it is, Waldman. So
I was
I
taking him the next pick just because I knew you were going to do it a couple rounds early.
so but it may not be early. I mean, 11th round.
Ain't nobody taking Brian Edwards in the 11th round in most
in a
leagues.
non-superflex draft, 11th, 12th round. But Matt, from the pick, I wouldn't even necessarily say you're buying the hype because you already had your view of Brian Edwards before any of this stuff. What is that view?
It's that you basically got a physical freak in terms of size, speed, strength, ability to win the ball in the air. And I thought he fixed his hands issues from his junior year enough that the fact that he's already gained the trust of Derek Carr to the point that Derek Carr was making comparisons to the comfort level that he had with him as a receiver to the same kind of comfort level he had with Devontae Adams at Fresno State was a very complimentary thing to pay about Edwards' game thus far. And when you look at the scenario, I just think that Derek Carr's going to trust Derek Carr's going to trust the bigger guy who he can throw the ball and let him win it, as opposed to the smaller, faster guy who may get open, but at the same time, deeper down the field. At certain times, it's going to be a little more boom bust for Henry Ruggs. I think it's going to be a little bit more consistent volume for a guy like Edwards. And I just liked, at this stage of the draft, giving him a shot and knowing, as Gene said, he was going to pick him around now because he knew that me or someone else was probably going to start thinking about him at this range. So especially with Terrell Williams out, I mean, I'll take a chance on this offense because, again, look at this division. Denver's probably going to throw more. The Chiefs are definitely going to be building leads early. So only the Chargers are going to be teams. It may be the only team where the Raiders will have 17-14 games. A lot of these games are probably going to be into the 20s and 30s, and they're going to have to throw to keep up or to catch up. And I think Edwards is going to get those shots.
And Gene and Matt, how many of the guys you evaluate, and this might not be a question you know off the top of your head, how many of the guys you evaluate are playing first team SEC football as a 17-year-old? Brian Edwards did that.
Yeah, very few, because most of the time it's quarterbacks who get that early opportunity, because but even then that's tough. So I mean, the fact that Edwards was doing that so early against physical cornerbacks just tells you how developed he was physically that early, because that's usually the case with guys in the skill positions. Is if they're starting early, it's because they're already built like men. As a 17-year-old. Yeah, as a 17-year-old. And the fact that he continued to improve and that it didn't catch up with him tells you something, because there's a lot of players who get 5 stars, 4 stars to their grade, in high school, and it's because they're big and they already move like college athletes, and then everyone catches up to them. Same way in high school, where if you're like that 5'11" kid and you're playing center on your basketball team as a freshman, or an 8th grader or 9th grader, and then by the time you're in 10th grade, you're still 5'10", and everybody else is shot up to 6'3", 6'4", and you don't have those guard skills anymore. You don't have guard skills because you were playing center. It's kind of that type of deal for a lot of guys.
Smitty Rock, 67 brings up Devin's comment about Miami and the offensive line, and I'll just add to that they love Austin Jackson, who. This is kind of like a Titus Howard issue where, last year, a lot of us, probably myself included, when Andre Dillard went right before Titus Howard, we thought, Houston missed this massive opportunity. Titus Howard has actually ended up being an excellent pick, and Tunsil and Howard are bookends for them. Austin Jackson was maybe a developmental offensive tackle in the eyes of some. They like him, and they like Solomon Kindley, who played at Georgia. So their offensive line could come together. Bob, you were unhappy with Clayton Gray It's one of the few times we're ever unhappy with Clayton Gray when we're in a draft because he took Derek Carr, and you have been a proud and staunch defender of Derek Carr. Why?
Well, we just had that Twitter exchange today, and really I was just saying that Derek Carr is generally left for dead in drafts. But in super flex leagues like this, or where you need to draft him, you could take him so late in the game, and it's just all upside at this point. But what I was really upset with Clayton about was he took TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, yeah. You were going to get your triple stack.
I was waiting for him, and I've been taking him left and right. He's the player I own the most of out of, I don't know, 60 best ball drafts by far. Jason Wood and I have been arm wrestling each other for who wants TJ Hawkinson more. So when Jason not here tonight, I thought I had a shot at him, even though I took him a round or two early. But Clayton's reading the tea leaves and obviously using the right settings in the draft dominator. Just kidding, Clayton.
And Gene's playing checkers playing chess to my checkers right now with Boston Scott.
Well, you can thank. I mean, that was Edwards, Bridgewater, and Kirk, and there were 4 picks before me, and they all went. So that's what took me so long trying to decide which way I wanted to go.
And I was going to take Bridgewater if Aaron didn't. That was a number 3 quarterback in the back pocket.
Yep.
Going back to Bob quickly back to Hawkinson. Why the confidence other than drinking that Michigan water? Why the confidence in Hawkinson this year?
I think he's set up to do big things this year. He's from a talent profile, he's one of the best tight ends to come out in a long time. I think he's largely being underrated, underprojected, underdrafted this year because of the bad taste that that he left in everyone's mouth. The reality, I've gone back and looking at a lot of players, whether it's, and obviously Gronk is at the very top of that, but if you look at the players with that kind of draft pedigree, and Matt does this in his rookie scouting portfolio, if you look at the jump that tight ends take from year 1 to year 2, guys that can catch 20, 23 passes and just be completely written off, like Mike Gesicki, for example. And Hawkinson is a lot better than Gesicki, although Gesicki is obviously a very highly, high percentile athletic profile, spark type guy. But Hawkinson, he has the blocking. He's going to get a ton of snaps. And I don't think he's going to have a problem staying healthy. He's going to get a lot more targets this year, and he's going to dominate in the red zone. The reports out of camp, besides his ankle not being 100%, which I think was fake news, because it was just more of a confidence thing for him. Not that his ankle's not back. It's just he had the confidence to make those cuts. But he's leaving safeties and linebackers in the dust, and they can't cover him in camp. And I think he's just going to continue that into the season, especially when I got Galladay and Jones and Swift and Stafford playing with a high amount of confidence in year 2 of the offensive scheme. I think Hawkinson's going to really, really blow up this year. Top 5, top 6 tight end in my book.
Well, and the camp reports back it up. I mean, he's been one of the most notable players in camp. And I think to focus on the Hawkinson news, and I can toss this to Gene whenever he makes his pick, I do think that when we first heard it, it was that he was acknowledging the injury, but it was taking it a little bit out of context. And then when we look at his performance, then he's actually not showing any signs of the injury. And by the way,
Hawkinson is fine. I don't think there's any issue with him.
And in between the Boston Scott picks and this current pick, Deshaun Jackson going to Daniel Simpkins, and then we have Jordan Howard, Matt Breida, Sammy Watkins. Hold your breath there. And Gene, another fun pick, Irv Smith Jr.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have too much to say about him. I'm just looking for, not hearing great things about Justin Jefferson, I guess. Who knows where they're going to throw the ball? Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen are going to soak up tons of targets, and Kyle Rudolph is still there too, but just looking for upside where we can find it.
So Bloom takes Tyrod Taylor. Bloom, What's your logic behind Taylor in terms of that? You see what he did in Buffalo with Adrian Lynn. You see what he did in Cleveland with pick a coach. And then, which one are you expecting to see show up?
I think that he's surrounded by a good offense, actually. And I do think it's going to be a boring offense, but in a super flex league, I want to have 3 quarterbacks. I was set to take Teddy Bridgewater. The lesson I had here again is, as we find out every year in this draft, you probably need to take quarterbacks a round before you think you need to take them. But I'll still take Tyrod Taylor because I think his availability in fantasy leagues will hinge on how long the Chargers stay in the playoff race. And even without Derwin James, just let Desmond King play. I think their offense is still fine. I think you're going to see a different blueprint, lower volume on offense. However, Tyrod Taylor will still run. Look, when you give Tyrod Taylor, one of the things that Anthony Lynn praises about Tyrod Taylor is his low interception rate. That tells me he's going to run. He's going to scramble because there's a directive. Don't turn the ball over. Make your reads. If it's not there, then just don't turn it over. So I like that high floor, and that's why I like him as my 3rd quarterback. And Sam Darnold goes right before that. Poor Sam Darnold. Aaron takes Austin Hooper. Matt Waldman
can we really say poor Sam Darnold? When Le'Veon Bell comes out and says no bars to Sam Darnold, and he had mono last year, you have to question the guy's work ethic.
Well,
just putting it out there.
Yeah. No. I mean, look, some of these things end up in hindsight. The more we learn, the more the things that we find out make sense. And look, it's a kind of a rebellious youth thing. I would understand if Sam Darnold is just rebellious.
Southern California kid. I mean, you guys draw the conclusions, but
it's Adam Gase, right? It's like the repressive father figure. And
I wanted Sam Darnold 1-1 instead of Baker Mayfield, but I don't know if either were the right choice, to be honest.
Right. Ain't that the truth? And we look back on that draft. Matt, you take go ahead. Go ahead, Devin.
Lamar Jackson went end of the 1st round.
Right. Ozzie strikes again. Matt, you take Tony Pollard. Is this you got Ezekiel Elliott? You're protecting your investment, or is Pollard a standalone guy that you'd been considering here, even if you didn't have Zeke?
No, I wouldn't have taken him probably unless I had Zeke, and this seemed like the right time to get the tandem player and protect my investment.
And Devin, you are protecting an investment, but not an investment that you made. The investment that Vikings may not make in Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison, is this just that time of the draft? You're thinking upside, that's why?
Yeah, it's entirely about upside. I mean, if Cook went down, Cook holds out, Cook does whatever, Madison is a guy who can slide right in and, be a every week performer.
All right, as we round the turn here, let's just go through and talk about our teams, how we're feeling about our teams. I want to make sure I don't want to get anybody who's on the clock. So, Andrew, you just took Mike Williams. And first, before I toss it to Andrew, Gene, Mike Williams' shoulder, and we can throw in Jalen Reagor, who hasn't been taken yet. Oh, table talk. Jalen Reagor's shoulder. How much do we worry about these guys? How much of it is a pain tolerance, range of motion issue now that we know about their sprained shoulders?
I think I'd worry more about Reagor, who's a labral issue and is at risk for more dislocations more than I am for Williams. My understanding with Williams is that he does have a shoulder sprain and AC separation. That's going to be a pain control issue. It could definitely be a longer term thing, depending on how soon players try to come back and whether or not there's any re-injury. But he should have enough time before the season to get right. And hopefully, if it takes a little bit of time during the regular season to allow him to get there, the Chargers give that to him. But my concern would be higher for Reagor than it would be for Williams from a health standpoint.
Yeah, I moved Reagor way down in my rankings. Love what you just did, Bob. We'll talk about that in a second. Andrew, how do you feel about your team here? Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Raquel Armstead. Running back, Devontae Adams, DJ Moore. Love the DJ Moore pick. Will Fuller, Mike Williams at wide receiver, Jared Cook, and Noah Fant. Who, what position do you like the best out of your draft? What position are you worried about with key players? Give us your thoughts on your team.
Well, first of all, every time I walk away from one of these drafts, I hate everything about my team. Like the performance pressure in this group is enormous. I like my wide receivers quite a bit. I'm happy with where they fell out. I feel a little bit less confident in some parts of my running backs. I don't feel like the depth is either going to be really, really good or it's going to be super disappointing. I kind of in an alternate reality, I wish I had a shot at Kelsey early on. I feel like that would have set a tone I was more interested in early in the draft. But I think generally it's pretty good. I mean, like I do feel like the quarterbacks are going to be hit and miss a little bit, and I feel like the running backs are going to be a little bit hit and miss. But I do think I can ride my wide receivers pretty hard.
And we got Bob Henry breaking the seal on the defenses with the Pittsburgh Steelers. John Brown goes right before that to Clayton Gray. Cecil takes Marlon Mack, a twofer Colts, Marlon Mack and Jack Doyle at the turn. And then Bob gets Johnny Smith. And yeah, Johnny Smith, a monster after the catch. So this is know your scoring and lineup. Say, Bob, I love it that I wasn't the one to break the seal on the defenses. I think you picked the right number one defense, though.
Been doing it all year. That's been the defense I want to get first, and I'm happy to break the seal, if you will. I don't want to be doing the streaming defense thing and trying to go week to week trying to pick the right team. I think the Steelers have a good opportunity to hold teams down, yards and points, and they're going to generate a lot of sacks, which create turnovers. And since Fitzpatrick came over last year, it took them to a different level. So I like the playmakers they have at all.
So what you're saying is you're lazy and don't want to stream.
He's got a family.
I'd rather save the roster spots and get upside in other positions. It's not lazy at all. I just like to have what I consider to be the best defense on the board.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I love it.
And the thing is, this is like the last ride because the Steelers are going to lose so many players in free agency next year. So let's make it happen. And we didn't get to see this defense with Stephon Tuitt last year. He's back. Yeah. Devin Bush is going to be fantastic. You know what I'm talking about, Bob, right? You know what I'm talking about. Devin Bush teleporting all over the field.
Devin took the Miami Garden Gnome.
Yes. Magic after Clayton takes Buffalo. So good timing, Bob, because Clayton was thinking the same thing. Devin gets Ryan Fitzpatrick. Magic, and I like this one too, Devin, for the same reason I like the Tyrod pick. Do we think that Fitzpatrick could start longer than people think?
It was mostly that I got Carson Wentz at sort of a discount, and if there's any issues with him early on, I have Fitzpatrick to slide in there weeks 1 through hopefully 17, but I'll take weeks 1 through 10, weeks 1 through 8, something like that. I expect the Dolphins to be much better than people think.
I agree. And we talked about the offensive line.
Defense is good too.
Yeah. They have Byron Jones and Xavier Howard and Noah Igbinoghene. Did I say that right? Igbinoghene. Sorry, Noah Igbinoghene. First round pick has been excellent. Xavier Howard's missed a lot of camp with COVID list stuff, coming back from knee surgery. He's been fantastic, the first round pick, and he's going to give them 3 good corners. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Patriots match up with them. They also got Kyle Van Noy. They also, of course, have last year's first round pick Wilkins in the middle of that defensive line. It's absolutely changing names, but Miami's going to be better. When Miami releases a player now, like another team will pick them up.
If you remember last year, they cut their entire starting secondary by week 3 or traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. But, basically their entire secondary was gone and Xavier Howard was hurt. And they got rid of Raekwon McMillan, which is a positive by
they got a 4th round pick for him. It was great.
That's John Gruden.
It was exactly. That's all you have to say sometimes.
That might be the only time we hear you say something bad about a Buckeye.
Yeah.
It was great. It was really great in my mentions because it was the anniversary. Sorry, Bob. It was the anniversary of the Appalachian State game. And I just tweeted it out there like, this is one of those moments in college football history that everybody remembers where they were. And boy, did I learn in my mentions at Twitter that everybody really does remember where they were. And so much of it revolves around the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. That, that day I had to spend the time with Ohio State fans, and it was like the longest day of my life, some Michigan fans said.
It was almost the biggest coaching blunder of all time. So Appalachian State kicked a field goal on first down with 30 seconds left. Instead of taking it down to 3 seconds or whatever it is, and Michigan got a field goal off at the end of the game.
My favorite Ohio State Michigan story is Chris Spielman saying that he wanted to go to Michigan, and he told his dad where he was going, and his dad said, "Don't come back home then."
It's that runs that deep. It runs that deep. You're not going to be on the clock again for a while, Bob. So we're getting into the late stretches of the draft now, and I've got Ohio State-Michigan rivalry and just Michigan football, and it's great.
Is it a rivalry anymore?
Oh,
There you go.
Ooh.
There you go.
Shots fired.
That's fair. I'll take it. It hurts. I can't sit down right now, but it hurts. Yeah, I'll just go back to the Steeler pick. Cecil was picking at the turn there, and if I really wanted Pittsburgh, I thought I had to get ahead of Cecil. So who knows if he would have taken them had I not. But that was really one of the things that prompted me to take him there.
And you got ahead of another drafting fine tuning here by taking the defense where you did. Then the Bills go off the board 3 picks later. Then the 49ers go to Andrew a couple picks after that. So you got your pick, and you wouldn't have had that chance if you had waited. Matt, you take O.J. Howard, so now you have it. You have your Gronk insurance, and actually in a tight end premium league, it's a pretty ingenious strategy.
I have my Gronk Martellus Bennett if both were healthy. Hopefully they'll stay healthy, or my Gronk Aaron Hernandez kind of thing, hopefully set up here in terms of what could happen in terms of extreme upside. And yeah, insurance as well. And yeah, leave it to Cameron Brate. He'll probably end up outscoring one of those two guys. But I think that it's one of those situations where, it just serves multi-purposes in one in this offense that's just like we talked about at the beginning. Lots of great skill talent and a quarterback who can, make the pie bigger.
And then Aaron takes Latavius Murray, another upside pick, and then Kerryon Johnson. I started looking at Kerryon Johnson like 2 or 3 rounds ago.
Yeah.
And again, folks, you're making me take him. Gene, reassure me about this knee brace, or tell me.
Gene's trying to make. I think Gene's got an ingenious plan, Bloom.
Yeah.
You try to make him cry like every week, and now he's trying to make you cry.
It's okay.
No, I just, like we said last Thursday, I don't see anything good about this where he's trying to convince us that A, he doesn't really need the knee brace, but B, it's become a part of him. I don't know. Running back, for the most part, you're relying on speed and change of direction, and adding something to your lower body like that, it can't be helpful for either issue.
No, but DeAndre Swift's also hurt. Oh, an excellent
Well, and
pick.
it's also the 13th round, so I mean,
Exactly.
there's nothing really. There's no downside in taking Kerryon Johnson in the 13th round. Where was he going before? Probably 7th, 8th round, something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So it's all upside. I'm just messing with you.
The
It's almost
Jets
like
picks
it's
have come a little early.
Sorry.
Chris Herndon goes to Adam. It was a good pick. I probably should have taken Chris Herndon over Kerryon Johnson, but I took Blake Jarwin earlier.
I just kept convincing myself that nobody was going to take Chris. I'll just wait. And I do that to myself every year with at least one player. So
That's okay, because you got the 49ers defense.
that's true.
And the reason
I feel really good when I hear that sound. So
That's for Gene again.
And the 49ers. Oh,
really?
Really quick, and then I'll let you.
I was
I'll
going to
let you
take
explain.
Latavius Murray.
I like the San Francisco gets the Jets in week 2. So you still get to profit from the Jets in some way in your fantasy lineup in week 2. You were unhappy, Matt, about Gene's pick. Why?
Because I wanted the Keenan Allen role in the Colts offense with Phillip Rivers, because the whole idea is, as Gene kind of blasted you for the T.Y. Hilton pick, saying if Rivers can get him the ball, we know that Rivers can at least throw the ball 10, 15 yards to Paris Campbell on those crossing routes that he's going to get plenty of, and those little short screens. So I like this as in terms of the role. We'll see whether his talent can really get him up to that ceiling of potential that people saw from him last year before he got hurt.
Yeah, it's my only concerns about the Colts offense is just how wide that target tree is and how that's going to work out. I think T.Y. Hilton's going to be at the center of it. There's one player that hasn't been picked that I might think would be prominent. Daniel Simpkins goes Greg Olson. And now we're rolling. Dwayne Haskins and Curtis Samuel go to Morrill. Love the Curtis Samuel pick. I'll still hang out and see what happens with him. Tua Tagovailoa goes to Daniel, and now we're back to Gene on the clock. Let's do a little team reflection here. Thanks everybody here as we're entering hour 2. 115 people still here with us. I'm not sure how many of you are watching. By the way, if you're out there, folks, feel free, chime in if you have any questions as we're drafting along. Comments. You want to tell us whose draft you like, whose draft you don't like. We're fine. We've got thick skin. We enjoy it. We enjoy that we get to do this for you. But make sure I'm not going to distract anybody as they're about to pick. Good. Bob, your team. Let's run down the Bob Henry squad here. Quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Third-round pick, Drew Lock. Running back, Christian McCaffrey. Sixth-round pick, Kareem Hunt. Seventh-round pick, J.K. Dobbins. And, well, we'll see. Tyreek Hill, Kenny Golladay, A.J. Brown, Deontay Johnson, Henry Ruggs. That is some upside in those wide receivers. And Hayden Hurst and Johnny Smith. Love that combo for where you got them, especially in a tight end premium scoring. How are you feeling about your team?
Feeling pretty good. I got sniped on some quarterbacks. Ended up waiting a lot longer. But that's kind of the game. The super flex could be very uncomfortable. I didn't come into this targeting Stafford or Locke for that matter, but given where I waited to take a quarterback, I feel like they had a reasonable amount of upside, considering the risk I'm taking by waiting that long. But I took that opportunity to load up at receiver as well as take some high upside players in Dobbins and Hunt to offset, taking Christian McCaffrey as the top pick. So,
yeah, I mean, if Dobbins or Hunt hits, I mean,
that's right.
You're golden. You're absolutely golden. Speaking of Golden Tate, just went to Adam. And Gene took Chase Edmonds. I took Anthony Miller. Gene, let me tell you, the chat room has spoken. Daniel Mayer says Gene is slaying this draft.
I'm going 3 and 10. That's usually what that means.
Slouch.
Go ahead.
It really is all or nothing. That's the strategy. You go 3 and 10, or you go 10 and 3. I don't have any interest in 7 and 6.
And I think that's fair. And I've always said that we color in between the lines in our lives. So in fantasy football, let's let our hair down a little bit and have some fun. And Gene, you've embraced the fun of the draft more than anybody. Matt, you're going to be picking here in a couple of picks, and then I can talk to you. We're in the 14th round.
You can talk to me now if you want. I know who I'm taking.
You're multitasking. Let's review the Matt Waldman team as we're getting towards 10 o'clock here, and I think we'll be starting to wind this up as we get to the end of the bench picks. Tom Brady, 2nd round pick. Gardner Minshew, a 10th round pick at quarterback. Ezekiel Elliott, James Conner, and I like this, the big gap to Zach Moss. That's an excellent running back. 3, and Tony Pollard. A wide receiver, Juju, DJ Chark, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Edwards. A couple of rookies there, but 2 of the most coveted rookies. 3 tight ends, Darren Waller, Robin Gronkowski, O.J. Howard. How you feeling about your team?
I feel pretty good. I mean, certainly wide receiver I could be a little heavier on, and that's a situation that people have concerns about all the time. But I think wide receivers tend to be easy to pick up on the waiver wire compared to other positions, especially in this type of a format. So I felt like I could take some chances, and I love what CeeDee Lamb provides me because I don't really consider him a rookie in the sense that most rookie wide receivers produce like. I think he's going to be closer to a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in fantasy this year. So I feel pretty good about that. Obviously, I went heavier on tight end this year than I did last year. And I kind of went with pick my guys this year. Just kind of decided that trying to play games and get cute with this draft is just like everyone said, is a complete waste of time. So you just, at certain points you look at it and you kind of go by feel a little bit. You look at your board and you look at, I do my projections and I look at it and I think in the past I'd look at it and go, well, ADP would say, and then I have to kind of quickly correct myself and say, no, you better pick him now if that's what you think, because there's at least 3 other guys who are thinking the same thing as you.
Who's the pick if Aaron doesn't snipe you?
Joshua Kelly.
Yeah. No, this is a good one though. So talk about Joshua Kelly and talk about whether people who like Austin Eckler should be worried about Joshua Kelly.
I don't think they should be worried about him necessarily in terms of like, I think Austin Eckler is going to get nice volume, and especially because this team is going to need to throw the ball to win the game, and he's going to get a lot of opportunities in the receiving game. But I think as good as Austin Eckler can be between the tackles, and he's a skilled runner between the tackles. They obviously prefer a bigger back in that role. They don't want to get Austin Eckler beaten up. They feel like that if they can use him more in space more often and line him up in the slot and have another back in the backfield, let's do that. And Kelly has become a quick study. His mind was swimming a little bit the first week, and then he just has pretty much been one of the best players in camp. It's a nice pick with Chenault. If Kelly wasn't there, I was going to take Chenault. Yeah. But I just like Kelly as a guy that if I'm looking for running backs who can give me points on bye weeks, I feel like Kelly gives me a shot at that. And then if Eckler gets hurt, he could get an even greater role. And he may even get a greater role now, because if they keep saying we'd like, Anthony Lynn said, early after the draft, that we envision him to eventually take over the Melvin Gordon role. Well, if he takes over the Melvin Gordon role completely, well, they need a quarterback who's going to be able to perform at least as well as Phillip Rivers has. And if that happens, they both can be fantasy factors on a weekly basis. So I'm looking for that upside that late.
Devin takes that. I have so much remorse for that Anthony Miller pick now that I have to admit I forgot Laviska Chenault. A terrific upside pick. As we round it out here, and again, folks, I don't know if this is going to be released as a podcast or not. If it is, you can go to the chat room in the YouTube to get the link to the board here, as we're going to wind it up at the 11 p.m. Eastern hour, so we can wind up the draft and go back to our lives. But Devin, mission accomplished in terms of your plan, or at least your goal, and in the roster, quarterback, Wentz, Tannehill, and getting Wentz and Tannehill 5th round, 6th round in a super flex draft is fantastic. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, running back, Eckler, Drake, David Johnson, 2, 3, 4, David Montgomery, Adrian Peterson, Alexander Madison. A lot of good depth there. Travis Kelce, and that's it, but I understand why. At tight end, wide receivers were Keenan Allen, Julian Edelman, Preston Williams, Laviska Chenault. Did this draft match up with your objectives?
It did. So I think it's going to depend on Eckler and Drake in the 2nd and 3rd round, but a lot of wide receivers slipped pretty far in this draft, and I was able to get, 2 guys to sort of balance out all the risk I have elsewhere in Allen and Edelman, who are just going to hopefully get enough catches that they're every week producers. And that'll offset some of the high variance that I have with the other positions. But for me, I was happy that wide receiver sort of went later in this super flex, and getting Wentz and Tannehill, I'm extremely happy with it.
Yeah, and I'm happy with everybody getting to spend time here tonight and getting to spend time with y'all. It's draft season. A lot of fantasy drafts coming up. Footballguys is there for you. We got the free newsletter. We got lots of episodes of the podcast. DFS.
Power Grid starts next week.
Power Grid's coming back, and this is a good time as any to give DFS a try. If you have some misgivings about the season, whether it will last, a DFS 1 week at a time. We'll be back. No Thursday night show tomorrow night. This is your Thursday night fix on Wednesday night, but we'll be back on Thursday nights. Next Thursday night, football. Houston and Kansas City. Dr. Gene, Matt Waldman, a special guest, Bob Henry, and we're going to have to bring Bob Henry back from the lair on the couch soon. Andrew Garda, and thanks to everybody else who's been part of this draft. Again, positive vibes out to our man, Jason Wood. Sorry he wasn't able to join us. And we love you, folks. We love to be a part of your life with Footballguys, and that you're part of our life, giving us the opportunity to do this. So thank you for joining us here as we live draft with you. Stay classy.